Hey guys, late night edition of the podcast here. It's Thursday, 7/11 at 7 o'clock at night on the West Coast, and we are going to kick things off here. Let me bring in my co-host, Benjamin Aloysius Nisman. How are you, sir?
Good to be back, Joe, and I want to start by just thanking James McCloskey for coming off the bench. That was just unbelievable work and insight, so I appreciate it so much. We got a lot to talk about today, some critical matchups, trades, we got guests, just a whole lot to do, so kick it off, buddy.
Yeah, big show here today, and like you said, we've got a couple of guests lined up, and one of them's on the line right now, team that is just sitting just outside of the playoff picture, and last year was robbed of the playoffs by one game. The Moose is loose. Robert Reginald Russo, how are you, sir?
Doing pretty good, hanging out in the 8th seed. I always seem to be kind of middle of the pack, hoping to make a little bit of a move in these next couple weeks.
Yeah, and it looks like you've already made a move. We'll get to that in a little bit here, but let's kick things off with my co-host matchup this week, week 14. Benji, you continue the undefeated streak to 12 straight weeks now.
Yeah.
By one statistic over Nick Homan, who handed the week away, 10-9 this week. Close categories, we got Ben winning by a triple, Nick winning by 2 RBIs, a steal, and a win. And you guys tied in losses and saves. And saves is the big one we'll get to in a little bit. Ben, on your bench this week, you went 13 for 53. That's a 245 batting average, 5 runs, a double, a homer, 7 RBIs, and 17 strikeouts. You know, the big thing was on Wednesday. It looks like you left Renato Nunez a 3-run homer on the bench, and Joey Votto went 1 for 3. You also benched Kyle Gibson's start. Not that I think you would have needed it, although it probably would have lowered your ERA a little bit.
Oh, 100%. There's a lot of things I could have done, actually. If I had decided to make that choice instead of starting Chris Sale, I know I wouldn't have done that, but even that, it would have gotten me closer to that inning minimum that I was really stretching for towards the end. I actually had, I think it was like 35.2 innings going into Sunday. And I had Gibson to go on Sunday with being down, being up in the home run stat, 8 to 10. So, and also losses was tied. So I didn't have a lot to gain by starting him, but I had to make the minimum.
Yeah, somebody had to go.
What's that?
I said somebody had to go. You were at 36 2/3 going into Sunday. You needed literally 1/3 of an inning.
Yeah, a third. Okay, so I needed a third of an inning. And do I take that risk that a reliever gets in there? What if he doesn't? You know?
Yeah.
Then I've blown everything that I've worked for. I can't not make the minimum. So I went with Gibson. He had a shortened start, but he fortunately didn't give up any home runs. He didn't take the loss in that Twins game. So that worked out. Other than that, the number that sounded pretty gaudy to me, did you say 7 RBIs on the bench?
7 RBIs on the bench, which would have won you the...
7 RBIs. That's a pretty... I mean, to me, I feel like then that's a winnable stat. There had to be some that I could stick in there. You mentioned Nunez on the bench on Saturday.
That was on Wednesday. Colin Moran was on Saturday. He went 4 for 5 with 2 runs and 3 RBIs. But you're not playing him over Carlos Santana. Like, that's just not happening. You look at a guy like Trey Mancini. You look at a guy like Trey Mancini though, who hit 111 for the week, as the guy you might have had to move in order to get that last couple RBIs.
Yeah, and most of those games were in Baltimore, and I just didn't feel good about sitting him.
Right, Hitters Ballpark and everything. Yeah. You had an interesting moment here on Saturday as well, where you added Marco Gonzalez and then dropped him for John Brebbia. Tell me about that. Were you just not feeling that start?
That's exactly what happened. It was just I got gun shy at the end. I picked him up early in the day, probably 9 o'clock in the morning, something like that. And then I just it must have been 10 minutes before his start, Joe, and I was really wavering, and I just decided is it really worth it right now if he just has a terrible start against Oakland? He generally gives up 1 or 2 home runs in his start, not too much more than that, but that would be enough for me to just blow it. And he could very easily lose the game. Mm-hmm. I end up dropping him, so it's technically a wasted move. But then he ends up going 8 innings and getting the win.
I was going to ask if you saw what he did that day. I was going to ask if you saw what he did that day because I just looked it up.
I didn't want to, but I had to because I was so close. And like the reason why I picked him up is I was going for the win to tie the category, and it didn't happen. I mean, it didn't happen for me. It happened in Seattle. So I would have tied that category. That's management right there. Like, that's me, second-guessing myself. I had the move. I made the move. I had him on my team. I could have just tied that. I would have gotten my minimum. I would have been benching my pitchers the next day. Except, no, I wouldn't have because I was going for the save. But I wasn't going to be starting.
You would have benched everybody but your closers. Your big-name closers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I'll take a win. Because
absolutely.
At this point, you just need to be collecting W's. I'm happy with where I am. I know that eventually, as long as I keep treading water, someone is going to have a lopsided victory against someone that's in the race. That's just going to happen. Those kinds of guys are still playing each other these next 8 matchups, which is what's so exciting about the bigs right now in this race. Oh, yeah. And Bobby, you would have to agree that no one has locked down a playoff spot. Anyone can just get knocked out in 8 matchups if they just run into, and I know, because both of us dealt with it. Like, I collapsed at this point, and Bobby had been kind of climbing, and then towards the end, he just didn't do enough to get into the 6th spot. But for me, Joe, I was at first place when we went into the All-Star break last year, and you know what happened there. So anything can happen at this point. 8 matchups. We've talked about the guys that are basically cooked, but at this point, I'm happy where I am, but I don't feel locked in at all.
No, nobody's locked in yet.
I think you just need a ticket to the dance. Like, I know I've had games this year with Ben, with Joe, with James, and I've kind of hung around all week. And then I played Frank 2 weeks ago, and I took an L, gave him his first W in 2.5 months. So any given week, like, anything can happen. You just need to punch a ticket to the playoffs, and then try to, just play a little reliever roulette, try to make some good decisions, try to put your team in a nice position to at least give yourself a chance, and then go from there.
Absolutely. Looking at the playoff picture now, obviously, Ben, you're up front for now. Anything can change over the next week, 2 weeks, month and a half. And Bobby, you're only 3 games out of the 6th spot. That little cluster of guys right there with Jason, Chris Levy, and you. That's going to be the dogfight for the final playoff spot, if it's my opinion. Barring one of the top 5 just absolutely collapsing, we've got it's a nice little cushion there that the top 3 to 5 kind of have. Jumping over to.
You think so? You really think so, though, Joe? Like, if I take 2 15-4 losses in a row,
well, then that would be considered collapsing, would it not? I'm saying, like, barring a collapse.
No, not at this moment, though. Like, I mean, there's still so much time. We're in 8 matchups is a lot of time to me. I mean, that's 2 months. Yeah. We're still playing for 2 months.
Yeah.
So, to me, like, I really think, like, as far as I'm concerned, I would say Mike Sherman's the last one, that number 9.
Yes.
He's 24, so then he's 11 and a half out of the playoff spot. That's nothing.
Yeah, no, that can still be made up.
That can be made up in 2 weeks.
Yeah, that can still be made up. It's those 9 that are really in the dogfight, but Sherman needs a lot of help because he needs a couple of teams to collapse. He's got to jump basically 3 teams in order to get there.
Right, but he's playing a lot of those guys.
Sure.
And 24 he could end up in first place very easily by the end of the season. Very easily. So, we'll see what happens, obviously. Yeah. But at this point, man, the streak, I don't know if it's been topped. We'd have to look into it. But
I can look into it right now.
Undefeated in 12. I mean, that's something we'd have to look at. But it's cool to have a streak like this because I know that in my memory, I've never done it.
Most consecutive matchup victories all time is 11. But that's victories. But that's victories. We, you had a couple of, you had a tie in there somewhere.
All right, you want to go to key players?
It would be 12 in a row right now.
Why don't we go to Mike's bench?
Well, no, we'll go to Nick's team. Nick went 3 for 10 on the bench. That's a 300 average, a run, a double, a homer, 2 RBIs, a walk, and 3 strikeouts. It's about as good as you can get. The homer comes from a pinch hit home run from Chris Iannetta when Tony Wolters is already playing at catcher. So, he has the Colorado backstops sort of on lock. And, Iannetta wasn't playing that day. He comes in and he hits a home run. Like, you sort of throw your hands up and go, okay, whatever. The big thing, though, is on Saturday he leaves Lester and Caleb Smith on the bench. And, he traded Chris Bryant for those two. So to see those two on his bench on the same day, and both of them get a win, only give up 1 run apiece. They get 9 strikeouts, only 4 walks, and, Lester gives up 1 run, and Caleb Smith gives up, looks like 3 runs. It wouldn't have changed anything. There's no way that it would have happened. I just think he probably should have at least started one of those guys. I don't know how the matchups were, but just one of those, like, you'd like to, because here's the thing: if he was in a situation where he's only up by about 12 runs, you could have, or 12 innings rather, you could have gone for that and gone after that and wins and ERA and strikeouts rather than holding off to not get the loss.
Right.
But obviously it went a different way. No big moves from Nick. Just a Julie Chassin spot start. We'll jump to key players, and Ben, for you, it is Colin Moran this week who's going to lead off your team here. 727 batting average for the week with the same on-base percentage. 3 runs, 2 doubles, a triple, 2 RBIs, and 3 strikeouts. The triple is key because you win that one by 1, and the only other triple was somehow Jonathan Lucroy hit a triple this week for you. Was that on Sunday?
They both did it on Sunday.
That's amazing.
Did it on Sunday. I picked up Lucroy was my catcher pickup for the day. He ends up winning me the category along with the guy you just mentioned, who I picked up the week before on Sunday, used up my moves to fill up because I knew that Monday was going to be a short day. So I used the rest of my moves on Sunday. One of them was this guy Moran, who just exploded for me. This and the Lucroy move together wins me a stat on Sunday. I was down 1-0. So that was just, that wins me the week.
Yeah.
That's the difference between winning and losing right there. So
Yep.
I'll take it, man.
Huge.
And just a little luck. I'd say it's slight, maybe 20% skill, mostly luck that the catcher that I pick up gets a triple.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see very many Sunday catcher pickups getting a triple the rest of the year, and probably hasn't happened at all this year. So it definitely, I would say that one's a lucky one, but the Colin Moran pickup was huge. Carlos Santana was also big for you, 368 average, 520 on base percentage. It's another 6 big walks for him with 5 runs, 2 doubles, a homer, and 2 RBIs. He's been an all-star for you.
Talking about sitting him before. I mean, he's putting up 6 walks on the week. I mean, I don't think he's sittable. Really.
No, and Ben's had him on his team. What is it now? 5 years in a row, Benji?
Something like that.
Yeah, it's like death, taxes, Chris Davis hitting 247, Nomar Mazara hitting 20 homers, and Carlos Santana on Ben's fantasy team. Guaranteed things that will happen. And your other Santana brother, Domingo Santana, had a good week for you. 444, 500 on base, 3 runs, an RBI, a steal, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts. And the 2 errors aren't nice, but you won that by 4. The steal was important, even though you lost that by 1, which was pretty disappointing, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not because I benched any. It was just came up short against a team that stole a lot of bases that week, and that's what happened. It would have been nice to just at least tie that category. That's not what went down.
Yeah.
And the 6 walks with Santana, I'm just lucky that he's been so consistent in that area, so it's a good reason why I'm still ahead.
Yeah.
Kind of crazy your team gave up so many walks this week.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, 18 walks. Well, we'll get to that in a moment because Chris Sale had a bad well, even Chris Sale only had 2. You didn't have anybody give up more than 3 in the week, but it's just a whole lot of like individual relievers that gave up multiple in the week. As long as we're on that, Seth Lugo had a great week for you. 3 relief appearances, 3 clean innings, 1 whip with 1 walk, and 3 strikeouts and a win. AJ Minter, who you picked up, gave you 2 clean relief appearances with a win, 2 innings, 3 strikeouts, a .50 whip. And Aroldis Chapman got you the only save of the week from your pitching staff. So I'm going to give it to him, even though he had a kind of a crap week. 3 walks, 3 strikeouts, a 10.80 ERA, a 3.60 whip across 2 relief appearances. It's an inning and a third, but he did get you the third win. So he kind of had a crap week. What happened this week, Benji? How are you not getting a single other save and having to tie that?
18 appearances, 18 walks, and only 1 save. That's really crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, just, a couple of blown ones. Their teams weren't winning.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't in the lead. There's no opportunity. Chapman was coming in non-save situations, if anything. And that's just the luck of the draw sometimes. Thank goodness at least I didn't lose the category, though. In essence, I didn't lose the category. So for me to still win relief appearances, to still not lose the loss category, I had a subpar pitching week compared to most. But I'll take it, man. Like, at this point, I don't think I've lost relief appearances one. I have to check.
I
haven't.
No, you haven't lost, and you're certainly leading the league in that stat by a fairly considerable margin.
Yeah. 12-1 in saves. 12-1-1 in saves. The 1 loss was to you.
Mm-hmm.
8-1-5 in losses.
Yeah.
So hanging on to those.
And 14-0 in relief appearances.
Yeah. 10-4 in home runs given up. I hold on to that one as well. So I'll say this: my pitching. There's nothing special about any of it, Joe. When we look through it, but the bullpen is solid enough, and the hitting is solid enough, and I think that's why I'm in the position I'm in. Not necessarily because I have like incredible players, just a lot of consistency, things that you can rely on, and then just making savvy moves here and there throughout the week to try to get those extra stats. Just try to get yourself a W somehow.
Absolutely.
I mean, Nick had a good week too. I mean, he threw 12 more innings than you. Somehow only had 7 walks and kept his whip at 1.09. I mean, that's pretty impressive as well.
It's very impressive. It is rather impressive. He had a couple of really good starts that we'll get to momentarily. His key players offensively, we'll jump to real quick. Yasiel Puig has suddenly turned it on and becoming, the guy that Cincinnati has traded for. 500 average, 500 on base percentage, 3 homers, 6 RBIs, 5 runs, and a double with 2 strikeouts. Christian Walker is good. Christian Walker this week, 500 average, 500 on base, 3 runs, 2 homers, 7 RBIs, and only 1 strikeout.
That guy wore me out, Joe. That guy wore me out with the 7 RBIs because the last 2 were on Sunday, and I was holding on to the category. That ends up being the difference of him not tying it. Instead, Nick wins that category. So that was tough.
Yeah.
That was a tough one.
And he gets
Especially
13.
Because we talked about the fact that the week before, Christian Walker is the reason I won strikeouts because he laid an egg on Sunday on Jimmy's team. He gets dropped. He gets picked up by Nick. He has an unbelievable week on a different fantasy team against me. That's the Bigs.
Yeah, that's literally fantasy baseball right there. That is the Bigs. And finally, Elvis Andrus had a good week. Granted, he only hit .217, but the thing I want to highlight is the 3 steals he got, which basically single-handedly won the category. 3 runs, a double, a homer, 2 RBIs, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts, an error. .217 batting average, .269 on base, but the 3 steals is huge. Coupled with George Springer's 1 gives Benny the L in that category. We'll jump to his pitchers. Jake DeGrom had a great start going into the break. 7 innings, 10 strikeouts, 2.57 ERA, 0.86 WHIP. You know, you hit on it earlier, Bobby. Only one player on Nick's team had a WHIP higher than. Two players had a WHIP higher than 1.17, and that was a reliever in Tony Watson and a Jordan Lyles spot start, which was awful. DeGrom was fantastic, along with Shane Bieber's 8 innings, a win, 8 strikeouts, 2.25 ERA, 0.50 WHIP. You know, he was the All-Star Game MVP for a clean inning. I don't know why, but whatever. And finally, Ken Giles ties the saves category. He had 3 relief appearances, looks like 1 earned run on a home run, but a save and a loss over 3 innings with a .67 WHIP. You know, that guy, he obviously, you know, kept him in it with the saves category, and considering it's like his only real closer, Wade Davis is on his team too. So he's got 2 real closers, one that's been struggling a lot lately. You know, I think if Giles gets traded, he already has the handcuff in Daniel Hudson on that team. So it'll be interesting to see what happens down the stretch. You know, to Nick's credit, he's done really well lately, and is starting to turn things around. You know, from the 16-2 loss he took from James in week 9. Since then, he's 3-2, but the 2 losses are not bad, and he's got 3 fairly solid wins. He's sitting in 12th, and I don't think he's going to make the playoffs, but if he continues a run like this, he could really be a gnarly spoiler for guys to face down the stretch. We'll jump to another matchup here, and Bob, I think this one will be yours. Let's jump to Bobby's matchup here. It's going to be, as soon as I can find it.
Let's just remember that I also moved to first on this one.
You did indeed. You do indeed take over the top spot, and you've got a 4-game cushion over me and 6 over James. Who? All
right, because I got to hear you gloat on this show after the second week of being in first place, after being in this position. After 14 weeks, I think I'm a little entitled.
You are indeed. You are indeed. Take this moment and soak it in, Benny.
That's it. All right, I took it in.
Fantastic. Bobby, well, let's jump to your matchup with Jimmy Dunlap here. You take another L, which is you came in losing 4 of your last 6. Jimmy came in losing 2 straight, and you know you take another loss here, 11-8. Close categories. Jimmy wins by a triple, a walk, an error, and a save. You didn't win anything close, Bob, but you tied in doubles and relief appearances. And I'm going to hit on the relief appearances in a minute.
Put up 20 and tied. It's terrible.
Yeah, and it could have been more, and I'll hit on that in a minute. For Jimmy, on his bench, he went 10 for 45, which is a .222 batting average, 7 runs, 2 doubles, a steal, 4 walks, 11 strikeouts, and an error. The big thing, though, on the 3rd, which was Wednesday, he had 7 relief appearances in one day. You know, half of them were good and half were absolutely atrocious, like Jose Alvarado's 67.50 ERA and Adams' 40.50 ERA and Perdomo's 21.60 ERA. So it kind of like, you know, annihilated any chance of his ERA being decent at that point. But you know,
but on Tuesday he had 4 relievers throw with no ERA. He was perfect.
Yeah, I mean he ends up winning those 2 categories, ERA and WHIP. You know, despite the absolutely 3 horrible ones. You know, his moves this week, looks like he added Gavin Lux, which is the prospect for the Dodgers. Now, I don't know if he has some inside information, but he's certainly, you know, that's a speculative ad considering that this kid may get a cup of coffee in September. He's kind of blocked by Corey Seager and, you know, Max Muncy and Justin Turner and all of those guys in the infield. So be interesting to see what they do with him. He did drop Brad Peacock and then picked him back up. Nothing special there. For you, Bob, you went 7 for 49 on your bench. That's a 143 batting average with 5 runs, 3 homers, 6 RBIs, 3 walks, and 14 strikeouts. But what I found it very, very interesting, on the 4th and 5th of July, which was, Thursday and Friday, Ryan Brazier got into both of those games in relief, and he was on your bench. Osuna had no game scheduled, and Cishek had no game scheduled in each day. So, had you had that guy in the lineup, that would have been a win in your favor for relief appearances. I talked a lot.
You're absolutely right, but you have to also realize that not only is that America's birthday, that's my daughter's birthday.
Yeah.
And really, being on your cell phone at a party like that, you spend half the day in the pool catching people.
Oh, sure.
Catching everybody and their mother's kid off the diving board. It's really hard to make those smart adjustments on your team.
Look, if anybody knows about landing on top of Bobby, it's the 2 other guys on this podcast, because when we wrestled, Bobby was usually the guy taking like Benny's elbow or my 450.
Let's address what that actually means.
Anyway, I touched a lot last week on Brian Dozier still being in your lineup, and the one week that he should have been in your line, the one day he should have been in your lineup when he homers on your bench, Colton Wong doesn't play at second base. At the end of the day, that doesn't matter. You absolutely annihilated him in homers and RBIs this week, along with average and on base percentage. That's really about it. Your moves were minimal this week. You finally did drop Adam Jones, though. Let's talk about that very quickly. I know this was a guy you were shopping, so let's talk about Adam Jones and why you ended up dropping him.
He kind of fell off the map. I feel like his value really just fell out from under him. I think he's still available on waivers. He cleared waivers, and I think he's just chilling on waivers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm kind of surprised nobody took a flyer on him. For a guy who was as hot as he was early on in the season, to see him sitting out there. And here's the thing. I've thought about picking him up as well, but it's one of those, I have to drop a guy I kind of like, so I'm going to hang on to my guy. Key players this week for Jimmy, who won the week. It's Anthony Rizzo to start it off. Rizzo went 304 with a 407 on base. 3 runs, 3 doubles, a triple, 2 RBI, 3 walks, and 4 strikeouts. Shin-Soo Choo, 417 average, 462 on base, 3 runs, 3 doubles, a homer, 2 RBIs, 2 steals, 2 walks, and 6 strikeouts. That guy just seems to wear everybody out, and he's not getting any love in the media. He wasn't an all-star. Dude is just a fantasy gold for Jimmy this year. Finally, Alex Bregman, 250 average, 435 on base, 6 runs, 2 doubles, a homer, 4 RBIs, a steal, 6 walks, and 3 strikeouts. And I'm playing Jimmy this week. Looks like he just took a grounder off the face, so it'll be interesting to see if he's out for any extended period of time. You were going to say something, Bob?
No, I said Bregman had a big week. He's a great player.
Yeah, absolutely. For his pitchers, Liam Hendriks, the closer now in Oakland, gave him an absolutely stellar week. 4 relief appearances, 5 innings, all clean, 3 saves, 7 strikeouts, and 0.60 whip. Amazing week. Luis Castillo continues to do well. 7 2/3, a win, a walk, 9 strikeouts, nothing earned, an 0.26 whip. The start was against Milwaukee, which I don't know if anybody's noticed this, but all of a sudden people are putting up pretty good starts against Milwaukee, and I'm not quite sure why. I don't know if it's, scouting has caught up with that lineup, or if it's just a mid-season funk that entire lineup's going through. But that's like the 3rd or 4th time I've highlighted a pitcher who has pitched extremely well against the Milwaukee lineup lately. Finally, Zach Greinke, 7 innings, a win, 9 strikeouts, all clean innings, and 0.57 whip. The start came against Colorado at home, and that's another lineup that if you can kind of catch them when they're cold, especially on the road, you're going to get a good start out of a pitcher. And Zach Greinke's been really good this year. Very, very good this year. 10 wins already, 2.73 ERA, and 108 strikeouts. We'll jump over to Bobby's team. Bobby, holy shit, your offense went absolutely fucking nuts this week. And it's about time you got a week like this out of the two guys that have really carried your team so far. First, Mike Trout, 348 average, 467 on base, 8 runs, 6 homers, 10 RBIs, 6 walks, and 4 strikeouts. Josh Bell, who is arguably the steal of the draft this year, 308 average, 375 on base, 8 runs, 5 homers, 14 RBIs, 4 walks, and 7 strikeouts. And finally, Brett Gardner had a good week for you, 364 average, 440 on base, 5 runs, a double, 3 homers, 5 RBIs, 2 steals, 3 walks, and 6 strikeouts. Tell me about what it's like to see a week like this, where every time you seem to open up your app or open up your computer, Josh Bell has another homer, Mike Trout has another homer, and you're just going off.
I mean, it felt good. I mean, to see the offense finally put things together. I mean, I thought I had a really good pitching week, and I only took down 2 categories. So I took a lot of L's where I thought I was going to take some wins. I really thought I was going to win this week pretty convincingly. James really put together a pretty good pitching performance against me. I mean, seeing some of the guys and seeing what they did against me. I know we had a couple guys get blown up. Perdermo got blown up. Adams got blown up. But, like, Boyd had 13 strikeouts against me. You said before, Greinke and Castillo had pretty good games, too. So, I mean, it's nice to see, you look at your phone and Bell's hitting a homer, and then he hit 2 homers, and then Trout hit a homer, and Bell hit 5, and then Trout hit 6. And Brett Gardner's got 3. It's nice having, a week where you put up 17 home runs. But in the same sense, it's tough losing some of those close categories. And, losing walks this week, putting up 3 stolen bases in some weeks, that winning and then losing to 5. And that was tough. I lost the triple category. Tying in doubles was pretty rough. I mean, I almost lost runs despite having 17 home runs, which is pretty scary. I took down average and on base percentage, but really, for me, that third error, which came late in the weekend, I was really hoping to get a tie in here. So it's really tough to feel so positive about your offense performance. When you're hanging around the 7-8 seed and you're having those 50-50 weeks, and then somehow coming up, a category shy or 2. I came up 1 or 2 shy against Frank, and then the next week before the All-Star break, come up 3 shy. It's kind of tough. Nice to see the bats ringing, but at the same time, it's tough, taking L's here in back-to-back weeks.
Well, and that's
Bobby, Bobby, you went 4 under 500 in the last 2 weeks. Like you said, your offense did a 180 for going from batting, in the 230s, 220s last week, like 313 this week or whatever you did. But when you have a 14-5, I know you had a pretty decisive lead during the week. I know you took it at least until Thursday. Obviously, at this point, that's still relatively early, but at what point did things just kind of go in the other direction? Was it Jimmy's pitching, or did you see something specific besides that?
I mean, I thought I came out the gate super, super hot. I mean, I think Tuesday is when my team kind of exploded a little bit, and then I had my pitchers. Had a really good week. I mean, I went 8-2 in terms of wins and losses, and the ERA wasn't terrible. The WHIP got a little bit high, but I got ran down on relief appearances with 20, and looking at some of the other teams, if I played them this week, I would have took a lot more of the offensive categories. But the way he managed his pen, the way he got his 20 relief appearances, the way he handled, 3 or 4 guys getting blown up and still running me down in the ERA, 67 strikeouts, was pretty insane. He only had 12 walks despite having 56 innings, which I think is really, really impressive. He just had a better week, even though I went 8-2 in terms of pitching.
Yeah, and I think this goes back to a lot of the things we were talking about the last 2 weeks about Bobby's team here, Ben, where, we had this feeling that Bobby needed to make a move in order to get to where he wants to be, which is obviously in the playoffs this year. And we finally see that come to fruition, Bob. We finally see you make a move for a hitter. You end up getting Matt Chapman starting this week, and you trade off Corey Kluber. Tell me about that particular trade and why it took you so long to make a trade this season, because I know that, Frank has talked about his negotiations with you. I know I had my own negotiations with you. Tell us about your thought process in that particular trade and everything that led up to it.
My thought process is I think my team can hang with anybody week to week. I mean, I picked up early wins in the first couple weeks against you two. I think you have two of the better teams in the league. I feel like I have some top 10, top 20 players on my team, maybe even more than most teams, but I definitely feel like I have a lot of holes on my team. There's a lot of guys I put a lot of stock into, and I hear you guys trash some of them. I mean, Kane's having just a brutal year. Taking on Brandon Nimmo and thinking he was going to be a big part of my outfield and beyond my team. Jed Lowry, who I drafted to be my third baseman, I thought I got some good value on him. Starting the year on the DL, I thought he was going to come back hot. Third base has kind of been like a carousel for me. I got 4 or 5 guys on my team. Myers kind of lost his starting job in San Diego, so every day I'm just waiting to see if Myers is actually starting. And every time he doesn't start, he comes in off the bench, gets 2 or 3 at bats, hits the dinger. So it's really frustrating. Some of the positions on my team. Ketel Marte's having a good year. He's 3 position eligible. I could slide him in a second. My big problems are playing, and you guys talked about it on your last podcast, is what do you do with Brett Gardner? I mean, Brett Gardner, you knew he was going to start the year. He became pretty valuable being that, long-term veteran Yankee, especially with the injuries in the outfield. And then it kind of seemed like, he was going to be going away with all the people coming back. I was talking to Frank. I was really trying to land J.D. Martinez. Frank and I had some negotiations. We had some things on pen and paper. And again, I think just like I did, we both got a little trigger shy. No one really wanted to. You don't really want to make a blockbuster move and you kind of come out with egg on your face if somebody gets hurt, or if somebody takes off and then the guy you pick up kind of tanks a little bit. So for me, I picked up Corey Kluber off waivers. He wasn't even somebody I drafted. I had the DL spot. I had the positions at the end of the week. And then really for me, third base has just been a problem all year long. You and I had talked earlier in the year when he was on your team about making a move for Chapman. You were trying to move Noah Syndergaard for Chapman. Mm-hmm. I was really trying to hold on to my 2 closers, my 2 aces, and then my 3 or 4 stud bats. Kind of make a run if I can make a run into the top 6 teams. And I was able to move Kluber, which a lot of people wouldn't do, to get a temporary third baseman. But, James has the luxury of making that move. He's got the cushion right now where he can take a guy in the DL who's not going to help him the next 3 weeks, but might really help him in the later 4, 5, 6 weeks. I need wins now. I can't go 50-50 every week, and I can't lose, 4 wins in 2 weeks, especially against some of the lower teams. I felt like I had to make a move. I really like Chapman. Maybe I overvalued him more than other people would, but I feel like he could help my team now, where Corey Kluber sitting on my bench really isn't doing anything for me.
Yeah, I think it's a really strong move for both of you guys. It helps you now to try to make the playoffs. It helps James down the line because I think he's got serious aspirations of winning it this year. He's all in to do it, and it gives him an ace pitcher that he's been looking for to pair up with Hyun-Jin Ryu. And the talk is that Kluber will be back next month. So if he can put another 3 weeks together without him, and then get that guy healthy along with Jameson Taillon. Man, we've been saying all year, if James gets fully healthy, that's the dangerous team to watch, and he just continues to put it together, this past week notwithstanding. The other thing that I know you wanted to hit on was your negotiations with Frank. There was some other... Go ahead and talk about those.
It wasn't just the negotiations. I think it was also about the week and the matchup itself, right?
We came to terms on a couple things, and Frank's made probably more trades than anybody in the league.
Ever.
As we were
Probably.
Ever. Frank has set a record for most trades in a season. Absolutely accurate.
He may have doubled up everybody in the league, in terms of trades, but while we were negotiating, he was strengthening his pen. You know, he was making moves. He was taking these guys. He picked up off waivers. He would max out his moves on like Wednesday or Thursday, and he was, you know, he had that flavor of the month, which is awesome. You pick up a guy, you try and ride him while he's hot. I mean, a lot of times it backfired on him because he would pick up the guy, and then the guy would go cold or show who he really is. Played more toward the back of his baseball card. But he made a couple moves. He wheeled and dealed a couple guys. He strengthened his pitching. And really the basis of our trade was I was trying to get one or two of his studs. He was trying to make a move. He reached out to me and said, I need a closer. I need a closer. And then I was like, you know, closers are worth a lot this week. You know, I drafted 2 closers in my top 6 or 7 picks. I mean, I don't know how many you drafted Ben in your top 6 or 7 picks, but, you know, I kind of playing this year a little bit more like you played. I'm trying to, you know, milk my way toward my 37 innings. I like to try and, you know, rely on Noah and rely on Cole when I can, and then sit guys if I have to. It depends on what my opponent's doing. So we kind of had a deal. We had something kind of come to terms, and then he got to the point where he was starting to realize to get the pitchers he wanted, he had to give up his stud bats, and then his stud bats really started performing, and then Noah Syndergaard was kind of underperforming, and then the deal kind of went south. And then he was like, I'm only making a deal if I get Trout. And I was like, why would I trade for JD Martinez if I'm giving up Trout? And then he was like, I'll give you JD Martinez, but I want Syndergaard and Cole and Osuna. I was like, dude, like, I don't think we're going to come to terms with something.
Right.
So it was frustrating. It was a lot of time, like, just going back and forth in the Yahoo chat, which is really tough because you can't, like, send screenshots and pictures of stuff. And we just had really different values on players. I think I value pitching a lot more than he does. I don't think he really values pitching really at all, and he really, really values his bat. So, you know, he was looking for my pitchers, so I think I maybe overvalue. So I think, you know, Cole's having a phenomenal year, and I feel like, and I think everybody in the league thinks, you know, Noah's got the stuff, Thor's got the stuff to be really dominant. I'm curious to see what the Mets do, if they're going to try and trade low on him, or if they're going to keep him and just endure it. But I think we both just valued what we had, and we just couldn't come to terms on something. But there's nothing wrong with that, but we kind of had something worked out, and then we kind of got away from it, and then we kind of went back to the drawing board. And part of it was my fault. I was really kind of doing a lot of negotiating with just one team, you know. And then James and I, you know, we started to get in coffee. I really liked Chapman, and it wasn't going to cost me anything. It was going to cost me something that was on my bench. I kept reading the Kluber reports, you know, not throwing, finally throwing, only throwing 60 feet. And I was like, you know what, this guy's not going to help you for 4 weeks, and I need to make moves in 4 weeks. So it felt like a good trade for both of us at the time. Like, if you look at the 2 players straight up, yeah, Kluber's way, way, way better. But in terms of our teams and how the trade could help each of us, I think it was a pretty mutual trade.
Bobby, you've been in this league now for a year and a half. Obviously, you've had a good amount of success compared to many rookies in our history. What are 1 or 2 things that you think you've really learned through the process that's made you a better manager until this time?
I kind of see what the veterans do, and I kind of know now, playing a lot of the same people for the second year. I kind of know what I got to do almost at the beginning of the week when I play certain people. Like, I know how certain people play, and, like, I know what categories I'm probably not going to have a chance in, and I know what categories that, like, you know, I have a better shot at winning. So I'm trying to play a little more strategically, if that makes sense. And then kind of like you, I know you were tipping off some of your moves that you kind of, you know, do. You were talking about, you know, making your moves for the next week on Sunday if you have extra moves. I've been doing things like that, and I've been trying to look for little ways where I can kind of help my team out, or maybe, you know, little tricks that I kind of feel like, you know, I didn't think about last year, and I looked at what some of the other veteran teams, the teams that were winning consistently doing, especially on certain categories, and I kind of taken some of those things to my advantage too.
I do just want to point out, as long as we've got a lull here for a moment, Texas is up 5-0 in the 8th. Lance Lynn is out of the game, 7 innings, 11 strikeouts, nothing earned. fantastic start against me to start the week. Thank you so very much. I greatly appreciate it. Bobby,
when you were discussing Ben's Magic, you were actually down 22-0 at one point.
Yeah, I know. It's going to be an ugly start to the week.
I didn't want to bring it up because it was literally like 5 innings into the first game of the week.
Yeah.
I've never 22-0 on a scoreboard at any point in any week.
Well, the thing about Yahoo is that if you don't have anybody get into a game, they'll count every single pitching stat, regardless of if you have anything, if your opponent has got somebody in. So the second Lance Lynn threw a pitch and got an out, every single one of those stats counted. And they're also counting all the offensive stats because I don't have anybody going either. So that 22-0, a lot of them are tied. Like, it's probably more like 8-1, 8-2. We'll jump to your pitchers real quick, and then we'll pause this and get our second guest of the evening in here.
I want to before we do that.
Sure.
I want to maybe see your insight on my team. I know Brett Gardner took a lot of heat in your last podcast. You guys pretty much trashed Kane. You're not a fan of Dozier.
Nope.
I mean,
This is weed nonsense, though. I said that I've never owned Gardner. It's a frustrating play.
I mean, if you're me, let's play some hypotheticals. Do
Okay.
you think I could have pitched Adam Jones into anything?
I think Adam Jones. I think Adam Jones could have been a really nice. Well, that's the problem, right? You had way too many center field and right field eligible guys and nobody in left field, right? And that's sort of been and it continues to be your problem. And as far as third base is concerned, you drafted Jed Lowry, but for whatever reason you've held on to Jurickson Profar, who's only hit he's hit 212 this year, and he's actually been worse than that because he upped his batting average recently. Like, he's been really, really bad, and I don't see why you held on to him, especially considering Ketel Marte is second and short eligible. I think if there's one thing I can point to that is, the bugaboo, if that's a term I'd like to use here. When you drafted Lorenzo Cain after picking up Mike Trout, it's what really logjammed your entire team. Because you drafted Cain, what, 4th, 5th round maybe? 4th round. And, much like...
In hindsight, it's a mistake. I mean,
sure.
In hindsight, I don't know if I just had it written down differently. I did 2 other leagues. I don't know if I just had this one. I was thinking it was 3 outfielders and not specifically a left, right, center fielder.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I drafted him. I really thought when I was doing the draft that, Mike Trout has such name value that I might be able to, get 2 1 through 3 rounders for him. Even though he dominates every year and he's, the value per position, you're not going to match that. I really thought I really was 50-50 on trading him post the draft.
I know. Wow. I was in New Jersey at not that far from the draft, and I was talking about, hey, if you're serious about that, I'll do it again. I'll go get me some Mike Trout again. And here's the thing. At the end of the day, I think early in the season would have been the time to sell on Lorenzo Cain. Unclog that logjam, give yourself the flexibility, and then you still end up with Adam Jones to fill that Lorenzo Cain role. And if you unload Lorenzo Cain at that point, then yeah, maybe you do get a third baseman that isn't, Jed Lowry.
Lorenzo Cain's been bad, but he's been a 300 hitter 5 of the last 6 years. He's just pretty bad.
Absolutely.
Sure. Nobody knew coming into this season.
Averages, to me, at least say that right now, Lorenzo Cain, you can't really sell low on him.
No.
He might be a good guy to just keep and plug in because you've got to assume he's going to hit the hot streak at some point. So,
if I don't have my route, I trade my other center fielder. I play Lorenzo Cain all the time because I really think, he had 30 stolen bases last year. He batted .308 last year. His on-base percentage was 400. I think he's going to, and maybe he doesn't, but I think he's going to maybe turn it on in the second half and get closer to where his stats have been the last 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, nobody knew coming into the season, obviously, that he was going to hit this lull like he has this year, and especially in that lineup. You figure that this guy is going to hit at the top of this order and be incredible for that, hitting in front of guys like Ryan Braun and Christian Yelich and guys in that ilk. I'm just sitting here pulling up Lorenzo Cain's Baseball Savant and see if there's anything that I see, that kind of
Meanwhile,
indicates.
here's what I'll say. I don't think Gardner is somebody that you could move. I don't necessarily think
No.
Adam Jones had a ton of value because a lot of teams already have those positions set in guys that are very similar to Adam Jones. So I think, to me, Bobby, you did exactly what you should do. You moved on a guy that's not going to help you right now, and right now you feel like you need immediate help, and you need immediate help at a specific position. So you made the move, man, and so I can understand why you were withdrawn from making a decision till this point, but this is a perfect opportunity for you, in my opinion. On that note, where does Jurickson Profar at this point stand for you? What do you expect from him? Where are you going to play him? What kind of role is he going to have on your team, do you think?
I mean, I like his eligibility. I like that you can kind of move him around. He basically plays the whole infield. I mean, I'll tell you, I was having really difficult, third base, second base, shortstop issues. I mean, I play Marte wherever I want, but like the other two have just been really, really, really tough for me. And then having Jed Lowry just not play a single pitch of baseball by the All-Star break kind of screwed me. I had a lot of stock in him, and I had a lot of stock in Bell. I mean, Bell is playing top 10 of the year and might be one of the best picks of the draft. But Jed Lowry was supposed to be my everyday third baseman, and now I'm kind of like trying to figure it out. I took Will Myers as kind of my utility guy, knowing he could play third base and the outfield. And then him getting demoted, trying to get, tough getting in the outfield out in San Diego. And I just felt like I needed to make a move for third base. But yes, third base and second base, I mean, they've been tough all year. I'm pretty much playing Marte exclusively at shortstop, but really just those middle infield positions. Besides Bell at first base, it's been kind of a merry-go-round of who I'm playing. I'm looking at pitching matchups. I mean, Profar might not have any value on my team right now that I've made the Chapman trade. But I just got to say, I mean, I still like Dozier. I mean, I know Dozier's had kind of a tough year. He's kind of a all or nothing. Maybe I'm still blinded by, the earlier days of his career when he was tearing up in Minnesota, hitting, 28, 30, 40 home runs. But I don't know. I mean, I definitely think I might need him to make another trade or two to maybe solidify some of my infield.
I have.
Sure, do you want to get into the pitchers that you wanted to get into?
Actually, before we hit that and move on, I have Lorenzo Cain's advanced stats in front of me, and the one thing I look at when a guy is struggling is his BABIP. And for anybody who doesn't know, I'm sure a lot of you do, but BABIP stands for batting average of balls in play. It takes out strikeouts, it takes out sacrifice flies and things like that from batting average. Last year, when he hit 308, Cain had a BABIP of 357. This year, his BABIP is almost 100 points lower. It's 288, which is, a little bit higher than his 246, but it's almost right in line. On top of that, I also look at his WOBA, which is weighted on-base average. Last year, again, with the 308 average, his WOBA was 359. This year, it's right in line with his BABIP of 287. I just don't see Lorenzo Cain turning this around with those underlying numbers. We'll jump to his pitchers real quick, and then we'll put this thing on pause for a moment and get our next guest in here. For the week, it was Garrett Cole, 7 innings, 9 strikeouts, clean innings, 2 walks, and 0.71 whip. It was against the Angels, who, when you look at how Mike Trout's week went, to see Garrett Cole shut them down for 7 innings, Fantastic. Sean Doolittle has been an absolute lifesaver for you as well, Bob. 3 1/3, 3 relief appearances, 2 wins and a save, 4 strikeouts, a 2.70 ERA and a 1.80 WHIP. And Alex Claudio is the guy who really kept you in it as far as the relief appearances is concerned. 5 relief appearances. 5 relief appearances, 3 innings, a win, 3 strikeouts, a 3 ERA, and a 1 WHIP. You know, you couple that with Javi Guerra's 4 relief appearances, and man, you were right there with it. And again, if it's not for, little Mackenzie's birthday, you end up winning that stat because Ryan Brazier gets into those games. With that, we're going to move on, but I'm going to pause it here and get our next guest on the line. So when I come back, it will be a 4-man show. Stand by. All right, guys, welcome back. I've got here on the line now. We still have Benjamin Aloysius Nisman. We've got Robert Reginald Russo. And now, also on the line, we have Michael Cornelius Haber. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Thank you for getting my middle name correct.
Absolutely, absolutely. I know I get everybody's middle name correct. I do a ton of research on middle names, and it is a pride of mine to make sure I get everybody's middle name correct. Let's jump right into it here, Mike. You had a matchup against Mike Sherman. It was one of the matchups I was most looking at this past week because it's 2 incredibly talented managers here. But you come in kind of on the skids recently. You're 1-4-1 in your last 6, and Sherman comes in winning 2 of his last 3. But it looks like you got off the snide this week. You got a win over him, 11-8. Close categories this week, you won by .003 in batting average and a loss, and Sherman only won by 1 homer, 1 steal, 1 point in on-base percentage, and a homer given up by a pitcher. You tied in triples and wins. So it was a really close matchup, a lot closer than one would think looking at it in the 11-8 final. On your bench this week, 13 for 57. That's a .228 batting average, 5 runs, 2 doubles, 2 homers, 7 RBIs, a steal, 4 walks, 19 strikeouts, and an error. Pretty decent week, all things considered. The only disappointment, I would imagine, is the Michael Chavis 3-run homer on your bench with Eugenio Suarez over 4 at third. That was on the 4th of July. Tell me about this week. Tell me how you managed and what you were thinking in this week against Mr. Sherman.
So Sherman, tough matchup for sure. Lots of Mets. So it was not difficult for me to root against the Mets. So sorry to all the Mets fans. But Michael Chavis is my enigma right now. He plays. Most of the time he's on my bench because I got my third base and utility spots filled up. But I try to play him in a matchup-to-matchup basis, and he usually screws me over. So I've got that to deal with. Also, my team is turning into this strikeout maniac team where Edwin Encarnacion is striking out almost every at bat. So I'm trying to sort of balance that out. But this week my offense decided to finally come back, which was nice. I tried to, really play the matchups this week instead of playing the same players over and over again. Chris Davis has been really slumping for me, so I tried to give him a couple of days, playing Jock Peterson over him. Yordan Alvarez has been great. But yeah, I'm going to be dealing with this left field sort of issue for a while now. Got some good pitching performances this week. Aaron Nola is finally here to stay. Looks pretty legit. Got my bullpen back to where they need to be. For the most part, though, Fernando Tatis Jr. was a killer against me this week. And it's hard when I don't know how you guys feel about this, but going against a manager, and Ben, I guess, can attest to this, but a manager who starts pretty much only relief pitchers, the majority of the week. Obviously, Sherman played a lot of his starters, but I'm saying, filled all of those starting pitchers slots with relief pitchers. I don't know how you guys feel about the strategy. It's so up in the air for me, and I've tried it before, but I don't know. It's tough to manage against it because it obviously like gives him a boost in relief appearances and strikeouts, but like, you know, if you have one sort of like meltdown from a relief pitcher, like that can lose you the ERA in a heartbeat. So I don't know. It was sort of a tough to navigate past like the pitching categories for me against Sherman. Let's see. Innings pitched, like I thought I had him. I thought I was going to come back, and then last minute he decided to play German Marquez. So I was hoping to cash in strikeouts in innings pitched this week and in wins. But it turned out he decided to like really start that starter, which I think made a big difference for him. But yeah, I mean, we were real close in batting average and on base percentage all week. I was winning in home runs all week. And then what happened I think on Sunday, did Alonso hit one, Tatis? I gotta go in and double check. But he took a bunch of categories from me on Sunday.
Yeah, Sunday he had 3 homers from 2 from Tatis and 1 from Alonso, and you only had 1 from Justin Turner, and that really flipped that category. Yeah, it looks like you also only made 1 roster move for the week in picking up the bane of my existence, Ivan Nova. Tell me about that stream and why on earth you would want to try to get that guy late in the week, you know, when you've got this kind of matchup up against you.
Yeah, like I said, I thought I had him in because to start the morning on Sunday, he had his starters on the bench. He had picked up, I think it was 3 or 4 relief pitchers for those starting pitcher slots.
He did.
He picked up Liriano and like just a bunch of guys. So I was like, you know what, I can catch him in innings, and I can catch him in strikeouts. And I think I was in decent shape before Sunday in ERA. So I was like, you know, even if Nova implodes here, I'm going to get Aaron Nola and I'm going to get Flaherty, who Flaherty's been a nightmare for me, but at least against the Giants, I was like, he's going to pitch a good game. So that's why I picked up Nova to try to catch him in innings. And it turns out Nova had a great game, which was insane. But I did like the matchup against the Cubs, who have been scuffling a bit offensively, especially towards the tail end of the first half. But yeah, I was definitely chasing those 3 pitching categories because I thought he was going to leave his starters on the bench.
Gotcha. Well, for Sherman, he only went 1 for 7 on his bench. It's a 143 batting average with a walk and 5 strikeouts. I mean, he had as clean a week as you can ask for on his bench, and you know that's kind of indicative of the fact that he's running such a small offense out onto the field. He's got his 10 guys he's running every day. He's got 1 guy on the bench. You know, it's a fun strategy to do, knowing that every day you're kind of locked into the guys that you're going with. Moves for him, though, you hit it on the head. I mean, he picked up a ton of relievers late. You know, Andrew Chafin, Luis Robert, whatever that is. You know, Joe Biagini, Robert Stevenson, and Francisco Liriano were the 3 that he picked up on Sunday. And let me check real quick to see whether they got into the game or not.
Meanwhile, I'll ask something.
Sure.
Mike, firstly, to win batting average basically by 1 hit, unfortunately you lose on base percentage 319 to 318. I mean, at any point, any different move you make, you lose both of these categories. So that was pretty huge for you. At this point, I mean, you're 9-4, I think, in batting average. You're over 500 in on-base percentage. I'm sure that's part of it as well as your pitching. But why have you had such success this year, you think?
You mean for batting average or just
in general? And just in general in the league. Like, why do you think, like, you've been basically on the top of the league the entire season?
Well, if I can cut him off real quick, it does help that he had an 18-0 win in week 2, but that's, you know.
Yeah, that was a huge part of it.
Well, it certainly helps that you had a start of 27-10 thanks to an 18-0 win in week 2 there, Mike.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah, Betty. Yeah, that was helpful. I feel like, I mean, I tried to be really patient in the draft this year, which is something I haven't done in the past. So drafting like Didi, like where I got him, I felt like I got him for great value. Aaron Hicks, who a lot of people were staying away from, who still has been a bit slow to pick it up, but he's going to get there. Justin Turner, I feel like I got great value for, so I tried to go for the value picks this year, and in the past I feel like I went more for like straight up power, not to totally give away my entire strategy.
Right.
I used to feel like home run, like you hit a home run, you get a home run, an RBI, and a run. So I would stack my team with power hitters, but I feel like this year was more about balance in general. Making sure I got Aaron Nola and Flaherty super early. And then I think I've gotten pretty lucky with some of the pickups, like Soroka has been huge. He would probably be my Cy Young winner if I were going to declare one at this point. And Yordan Alvarez, who I stashed on my NA slot early in the season. So I feel like the balance is probably the thing that's helped the most this year.
Yeah, I wanted in on Yordan Alvarez. I'm not going to lie. I was pretty upset to see him jump to your team. That was a pretty good pickup, dude. Let's jump to key players of this matchup real quick. For you, Mike, it was Mookie Betts this week, and I know that Mookie has been up and down a lot this year. He's just not playing as the number 2 guy, the number 2 overall pick that you wanted him to be. But this week he was fantastic. 435 average, 533 on base, 11 runs, 3 doubles, a triple, 3 RBIs, a steal, 6 walks, 2 strikeouts, and an error. Yordan Alvarez also did quite well for you. 462 average and on base, 3 doubles, 4 RBIs, 5 strikeouts, and an error. And Eugenio Suarez, the 0 for 4 on the 4th of July notwithstanding, also had a good week. 294 average and on base, 3 runs, a double, 3 homers, 6 RBIs, 8 big strikeouts, though you don't like to see that as much, especially considering you lost by 19 strikeouts. Tell me about your offense. Tell me particularly this week what stood out to you. And you hit on it with Michael Chavis being sort of the bane of your existence recently. Tell me what struggles you've had or what successes you've had offensively.
My biggest struggle, not just this week, but in general. I'm not sure what the move is with Edwin here. I'm hearing, actually, because I'm a huge Yankee fan, but listening to the Yankee radio, like, when Luke Voit comes back, there's a good chance that Edwin's sitting on the bench. Mm-hmm. And because LeMahieu's got to play and Urshela's defense is spot on. So I'm a little bit lost on the first base position right now. I got Jock Peterson, who just got first base eligibility, which is great. Chavis, who every time I play him, he goes 0 for 6 with 2 errors. But I still have a couple backup first basemen. But it's the strikeouts that's killer right now, but I feel like it's kind of a league-wide epidemic at this point. So trying to navigate through that. The successes, I feel like I'm trying to read like streaks as best as possible. Like Paul DeJong was super hot at the beginning of the year, and I really thought it was going to be a platoon with him and Gregorius for me, but I mean he's pretty much a backup or bench player at this point. Suarez, who I think I drafted him 4th overall. It's either 3rd or 4th.
Yeah, it was your 4th rounder.
4th rounder, and he spent the majority of I would say the past 6 to 7 weeks on my bench. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, Turner's the better option right now, and I've got Crush Davis and Yordan Alvarez to fill the left field and utility spot. So until Suarez starts to prove that he can hit, or he's doing it consistently, because I had Suarez last year, mm-hmm. and he was like,
he's a monster last year.
Yeah. So it's just like riding the streaks, and I'm super patient with Mookie Betts. I'm fielding lots of trade offers for him right now. Guys who think that I'm going to sell high or sell low because he's had such a rough first half, but he's not going anywhere. I have a feeling Boston is not done yet.
No, they're definitely gonna make a run, and I think the second half is really gonna be big for them. I think Ben's Chris Sale is gonna have a big second half.
Oh yeah, I think so. That's why I'm holding on to Chavis too. I feel like if Boston gets hot, I think Chavis is going to be a big part of it because when he rights the ship, he's a power hitter for sure. But limiting those strikeouts, that's the thing I'm going to focus on for the second half for sure.
Yeah, let's jump to your pitchers real quick. You hit it on the head with Aaron Nola. He was the pitcher of the week for you. 14 2/3 across 2 starts, 2 wins, 14 strikeouts, just 1 home run, 6 walks, an 0.61 ERA, and 0.89 WHIP. The starts were against the Mets and against the Atlanta Braves. The Braves was actually a better start, 8 innings, 8 strikeouts versus the 6 2/3 and 6 strikeouts against our absolutely atrocious New York Metropolitans. One guy that's on your team that has really flown under the radar for quite a few people is John Means. 7 innings, 5 strikeouts, just 1 home run, a 2.57 ERA, and a .86 WHIP. The start was in Tampa Bay, which is a playoff contending team, and John Means somehow has pitched to a 2.50 ERA and a 1.08 WHIP this season. I know you grabbed him off of the waiver wire, I believe. I don't think you drafted him. And he bounced around quite a bit before you ended up picking him up back at the end of May. Will Smith did well for you. 3 relief appearances, all clean, 2 saves. He single-handedly has won you a few categories this season. I know I had to deal with that because he won you saves with 4. And they won only 4 games that week. Tell me about Means specifically, what you see in him, and if you think that the second half is going to have any regression, or if this is sustainable.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I saw him pitch because I went to a game, Yankees and Orioles, and I saw him. He wasn't even a starter yet. He came in. I think he pitched 4 or 5 innings of relief. From whatever atrocious starter the Orioles threw out there. And the Yankees bats the first 2 innings against the starter, I think they scored 9 or 10 runs. And Means came in and it's 5 scoreless innings with 8 strikeouts. And I was like, this guy had a changeup that he threw it like a fastball. I mean, that's his go-to pitch, and it's seemingly unhittable if you're looking for something else. I don't know if it's sustainable. I don't know if the league is going to sort of catch on to what he's doing, but at this point it seems like they should have. But it started off with me that it was a start. I went start by start with him, and now I'm at a point where I'm going to pitch him against any team in the league because he can really baffle even the most prolific lineups. Means is not going anywhere, and he's going to start every time he's pitching. And Will Smith, I mean, the big question right now is where is he going to go? Mm-hmm. And so I'm hoping for the Twins or I'm hoping for the Braves because I need him to go somewhere where he's going to remain closer. If he goes to LA, the Dodgers want him. I'm in a little bit of trouble there. So I'm hoping it's a package deal. I've been hearing Braves. I've been hearing Bumgarner and Smith going to the Braves. Mm-hmm. So I think that would be definitely actually a boost for Bumgarner's value and for Will Smith. Get more save opportunities and wins. So,
right now, Will Smith is rumored to the Cardinals are really high on him, so that might be the landing spot. And with Jordan Hicks down, John Gant's been up and down as far as injuries are concerned. That might be a really nice landing spot for him too.
Yeah. Is there any consideration, Mike, to trading him on that off chance that he goes to a team that he doesn't end up closing? So you might as well trade him and get something, and someone makes the mistake.
Hey, if the right offer comes along. I mean, where I'm at right now, though, with this team is that I'm trying to trade for pitchers. I think that I have stronger offense at this point. So I'd rather trade away some of those pieces where I sort of have the coverage like a left fielder or a third baseman where I have a lot of options.
Well, I might, if I may, there's a gentleman in this conversation that happened to be looking for third baseman and left fielder most recently. Bobby, jump in here, man.
Yeah, he sent me a trade, but I already had picked up Chapman, so it was kind of like, I'm actually looking at his team right now, as you guys get.
Oh, you just got Chapman for
Corey Kluber.
So I'm on the outside looking in, trying to move from 8th up into the top 6. So Kluber is just kind of sitting on my DL, and I'm trying to pick up somebody on the start every day or 7 days a week, as opposed to a starter we don't know what's going to be in like 3-4 weeks. I mean, we don't know how far out he is. If he has a setback, I mean, it's like a free trade for me. So, but I mean, he could kill it in August too. So we don't know.
I mean, just playing devil's advocate here. I know, Bobby, that you've been shopping Yanni Chirinos, and left fielder for Yanni Chirinos. Maybe that's the deal. Let's jump to Sherman's key players. I don't want to negotiate a trade between the two of you right now. You hit the nail on the head though, Mike. Looks like Fernando Tatis wore you out this week, man. He was absolutely on fire. 259 average, 310 on base, 3 homers, 5 RBIs, 6 runs, a steal, a walk, and 7 strikeouts. Malik Smith is a really nice pickup. He was really terrible to start the season, got sent down to AAA. He's back up now. He hit 320, 346 on base, 2 runs, a double, 2 steals is the real important thing because he ended up winning steals by 1 over you, a walk, and 3 strikeouts. And finally, Wilson Ramos, 308 average, 438 on base, 3 walks, 2 strikeouts, and an error. Really not much to write home about offensively for Sherman this week. The homers were really nice. Pete Alonso had a good week, but the walks, the steals, the on-base percentage is really the big thing. The on-base percentage, winning by 1 point. Pitching-wise for him, it was I said it at the time that Clayton Kershaw could have been the steal of the draft if he were to come back and be the ace pitcher that we've seen in years past. He got him in the 7th round after pick 100. And, this week he was really good. 7 innings, 1 earned run, 9 strikeouts. The start came against San Diego at home, so it was a pretty good start. It was a great start for him as well. Mike Clevenger had a great start, 6 innings, a win, 9 strikeouts, nothing earned, 0.67 WHIP. His start came in Kansas City. Third one back from his injury. And finally, Yusmeiro Petit was pretty good for him. We talked about him last week very briefly, but 4 relief appearances, looks like only 1 earned run and an 0.64 WHIP, 4 2/3, a homer, and 3 strikeouts. It really comes down to the relief appearances being the stat that he sniped you on. We touched on it earlier, but we didn't really get to hit on it.
He had 8 relief appearances. I mean, he had 1 on the bench, but he picked up 7 for his total all on Sunday.
Exactly.
So what is your thought on that, the relief pitcher and the starting pitcher? I mean, I have 9 positions. He picked up 7 on a Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely shocking to wake up in the morning and see that he had basically retooled the pitching staff. I mean, there's nothing against it, but it's hard to strategize against it. But if you look at some of those relief pitcher stats,
the ERAs are brutal too.
Yeah, they're brutal, and that's why I try to avoid that. Yeah, James on Houston, and Stevenson didn't have a good appearance. Jake Diekman had a rough week for him. Liriano wound up not even playing. So they're I get it, and he did snipe that category from me, but I do feel like his relief pitchers were the ones that hurt his ERA. If you look at his starters' ERAs this week were great. So if you're a relief pitcher and you're getting knocked around, your team's whip is going to fly up too. So I felt like I didn't want to battle him in that because it wasn't worth it. I felt like I had enough going on Sunday from a starting perspective to let him do his thing and ride with the guys I had. The only pickup I had was Nova, who I was chasing those innings. But yeah, I mean, I feel like the relief appearance thing is a double-edged sword. You really gotta toe the line And I mean, it helped him because he won that category, but I do feel like I won ERA and WHIP because of some of those relief appearances he picked up.
Sure.
And the walks given up that you won that category 19-16. I think that's another reason, just that the bullpen, that it is a good strategy, I think, to try to milk the innings, try to get to the minimum that way. But like you said, like, it can burn you sometimes, and I think that's what's good about that.
Yeah, I also just want to point out that this matchup looks really close on paper, but when you dive deeper and you look at Sunday, Sherman got kind of lucky. You know, the relief appearances is one thing, but you know, he won home runs given up by a pitcher by 1, and yet still had 7 relief appearances for pretty shitty, you know, relievers. Like Andrew Chafin gave up a home run, Herman Marquez gave up a home run, and he had, you know, 6 other relievers going that all could have very well given up a home run. I mean, Diekman was awful for him. You know, you look at the steals. He didn't get one on Sunday, but you know, he won that by 1. He won home runs by 1, and it took a Fernando Tatis 2-homer game in order to make that happen. So he got a little lucky this week. You still end up pulling off the win. It probably should have been more like 12-7, 13-7, somewhere in there, than the 11-8 final. We'll give you the last word on this one, and then we'll jump to another matchup here.
Okay. Yeah, no, I was, you guys probably can relate to this, but you have a feel going into every week. Like, you have a sense of, like, which managers, which teams are really going to give you trouble. Going into this week, I had a feel that this was going to be a struggle for me. So I'm definitely happy with how it turned out, but given how the week progressed, I really do think I could have gotten a bigger win out of this, but I'll take it given my losing streak, and hopefully can ride some momentum forward.
Mike, I have first some numbers out. You and I know the history. You've been in the league for quite a while, since 2008.
Yeah.
You made the playoffs 8 years in a row. You've had a lot of sustained success, and you've seen the format of the league change so many times, and you've just adjusted to it. At this point, you know, you've been in the league for this long. Is there something that you still feel like you learn year to year about the league?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. And it's something different every year. And because, like, we as managers are adjusting not only to each other and new managers coming in, but like to the trends of baseball that are constantly changing, like the high strikeout rate and like the relief appearance, the more value on the relief pitcher and less on the starting pitcher. Like, so absolutely learning something new every single year in the bigs. Learn from other managers for sure. But yeah, I mean, I just hope, I don't know if it's a mix of luck or whatever, but I just hope that I can continue with success in this league, because it's everything. Look forward to it every year. So I just thank you for Ben and the rest of you guys for like having me in the league, and look forward to a great second half.
It's our pleasure, man. Like, it's great having you, and you're such an important competitor, and you've been that way so that this long. You helped make the league what it is, man. So just thank you as well.
Yeah. Thanks, Ben. And Joe, thanks for having me on this.
Oh, anytime. And like I've said week after week, guys, anybody who wants to be on this show, just let me or Ben know. I'll be happy to have you on. This particular week, we decided to go with a night show, given all of the off days we've had, and we wanted to get Bobby on. And Bobby suggested, hey, why don't we do this in the evening? It'll be easier for him. This has been fantastic. Let's jump to the beatdown of the week.
Mike. Thanks a lot for coming on, dude.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
We'll jump to the beatdown of the week. It's going to be Bumpin' Ugly's Ari Nisman beating down on the number 1 team, James McCloskey, this week, 16-4. I have to be honest, I thought this matchup was going to be a hell of a lot closer, and I even thought James was going to take this one down, but Ari got him pretty strong here. Ari wins by 2 runs, a homer, a win, a loss, a home run given up by a pitcher, and a relief appearance. James wins by a save, and they tied in innings pitched. For Ari, who won the week, he went 21 for 81 on his bench. That's a 259 average, 9 runs, 9 doubles, a triple, a home run, 9 RBIs, a steal, 5 walks, 20 strikeouts, and an error. None of that really matters because all of those stats were pretty much won and lost, aside from runs scored. When I run down James's numbers here, you'll see that they kind of mirror each other. They both had a really interesting week on their bench. But at the end of the day, it's more of the same with Ari's lineup where, Arenado and Vlad Guerrero sort of occupy third in utility with Ohtani flipping in every once in a while. But it was just an interesting week to see. Ari didn't make a roster move and hasn't made a roster move since June 29th. And I think he's pretty set with his team right now. He hasn't needed to make a move. His last move was picking up Steven Matz, who's now in the bullpen. He should be getting relief pitcher eligibility shortly, I would imagine. He's got 2 relief appearances since he's been moved to the pen. I would imagine that one more and he gets that eligibility, though he is scheduled to start in Minnesota on the 17th, so we'll see if that actually happens. For James, it was pretty interesting week. 19 for 69, nice batting average. Was 275 on the bench, 13 runs, 11 doubles, a triple, a homer, 9 RBIs, a steal, 11 walks, 17 strikeouts, and 3 errors. So if we look at that line, the batting average is a little bit higher for James. Run total is a little bit higher. Doubles is a little bit higher. They both had a triple. They both had a homer. They both had 9 RBIs. They both had a steal, all on the bench. Strikeouts were about the same. So if you say, okay, if a guy can get half of his bench stats, well, half of the bench stats would be the same for both of these guys.
He would have won him runs for sure. I don't know about everything else. Maybe the walks too.
Maybe, but there again, Ari had 5. He lost by 6. So it's up in the air. At the end of the day, I think Ari really sniped him on Sunday with homers, and the save I think came on Sunday. Or no, the save did not come on Sunday, but the homers definitely did. He had 5 homers and 15 RBIs just on Sunday. So that's really what ended up winning this week.
And just an awesome Sunday. When you get a Sunday like that, and you get to dominate your opponent after having just kind of a back and forth week, and just put the hammer down on Sunday, it's one of the best feelings in the bigs.
Yeah, we talked about it on the last show, that Ari's right on that cusp where we're not quite yet ready to write him off, but he needs wins like this, and he needs a couple more in order to really jump back into this thing. James...
He also had 3 relief appearances to 1, and he won that category by 1, and he had 2 Sunday wins, which is pretty impressive.
Well, there's 3 categories right there that he flipped, so...
Yeah, puts him right on Sunday, which is monumental.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that goes from 13-7 to 16-4, just like that in those 3 stats. Now on James's bench, Hunter Renfroe on Wednesday went 3 for 4 with 2 runs, a homer, and 2 RBIs, and a double on the bench, while Joey Gallo went 0 for 4 in left field. On Friday, Byron Buxton went 2 for 5 with 2 doubles, 2 runs, and an RBI on the bench. And CJ Cron went 2 for 5 with 2 runs, 2 doubles, and 2 RBIs on the bench. The Twins went off that day, and he did not reap the rewards there. It's pretty disappointing when you look at how close a lot of these categories were, especially the run totals. He did also miss a Joe Kelly relief appearance on Saturday, which really sucks considering what Bobby just hit on with the relief appearances on Sunday getting sniped from him. His roster moves, he once again went back to the streaming pitcher strategy, and it paid off for him. He did have a couple of good... Well, he had 2 really bad starts, and that ultimately what cost him ERA and WHIP. It was Jake Junis on the second, 4 2/3, 6 earned, and it's 11.57 ERA and a 1.71 WHIP. He then turns around and drops Jake Junis for Cal Quantrill the next day, and he goes 4 1/3, 3 earned, which is a 6.23 ERA and a 1.38 WHIP. it sucks because you look at a guy like Ari who's struggled all year with ERA and WHIP, and he's got the worst. He's still got the worst ERA in the league, sitting at 483. It's only a couple of points higher than Frank, but to see Ari throw a 274, or I'm sorry, wrong matchup, 263 for the week and an 096 WHIP, that's not going to lose very often. And James's 336 and 123 WHIP is really solid. That's very competitive. Should win you probably a little more than half of the weeks, I would imagine. But it's just this week is one of those weeks where Ari just was really good across the board, offense and pitching. We'll jump to keep. Go ahead, Bob.
I was looking at James for what he's been doing record against his opponents, and one thing that he's been really bad in is actually walks given up. He's 4-10 in that stat, and to me, that's part of him streaming pitchers and trying to go for it. And in the meanwhile, he's only 7-6 in innings pitched. So when he's been chasing, he hasn't even necessarily been like dominating. He's 8-5 in strikeouts. That's good. But ERA, I was actually kind of surprised to see he was 9-5 in that category, because I thought just from streaming, it would come back to bite you more often than not. But I guess because he's had a lot of luck in the beginning, and he's been fortunate in the beginning, it sort of was part of the reason he was winning that stat early.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, you look at my team, who's the worst in the league in walks given up, but I'm 13-1 in innings pitched, I'm 9-3 in wins, I'm 11-3 in strikeouts, I'm 11-3 in WHIP, and 9-5 in ERA. If you're going to stream guys and get as many innings as you can, you've got to be kind of choosy. And James had an incredible first maybe 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks streaming pitchers and just hitting every single time. And it's kind of catching up to him. He's coming back to the mean. The key pitchers for Ari this week, it's a name that I didn't think was even worth rostering anymore, and all of a sudden this guy is putting together a fairly decent season. It's just Jeff Samardzija. Samardzija had 15 innings across 2 starts, 8 strikeouts, 2 walks, a 1.20 ERA, and 0.73 WHIP, and 2 big wins. The starts came in San Diego and against St. Louis, so 2 of the bottom teams in the league. St. Louis has really been struggling lately. But, 15 innings and 2 wins, you'll take it every time out. He also had Andrew Cashner, another guy. Do you really think that Cashner was worth rostering coming into the season? But his last month has been really good. He's gone 6 innings or more each of his last 5 starts. He's won his last 3. He hasn't given up more than 2 earned runs in his last 5 starts. And this week, he gives him 7 innings, a win, 4 strikeouts, 1 earned. The start was in Toronto, who's a lineup that's either really hot or really cold. And that particular day, they were just really cold. Cashner's ERA has now dipped under 4. It's at 3.83 with a 1.19. He's actually really serviceable. And all of a sudden, Ari's starting to put together a decent staff here. Finally, Dallas Keuchel, 14 1/3, a win, a loss, 3 walks, 7 strikeouts, a 2.51 ERA, and an 0.91 WHIP. The starts came both at home against Philly and Miami, 7 and 7 1/3 respectively. They were both fairly decent starts. 2 earned runs apiece. 7 strikeouts total. But here's the thing I was telling, and it's what I talked about with you, Ben, when we were talking about Dallas Keuchel. Is Keuchel going to be the ace of this staff that he can pair with Walker Buehler, or is he just going to be a really serviceable 3 guy? If Buehler, Keuchel, Samardzija, and Cashner are the guys, and DeSclafani are the 5 guys he's going to run out there every week, I don't know. I feel pretty confident that I can put together a staff that'll beat that, because Samardzija's up and down, Cashner's a ticking time bomb, and DeSclafani's one wrong pitch from being back on the DL, despite the fact that he's put together a decent season and has pitched over 85 innings. Anybody want to chime in on his pitching staff?
I'll say something. I'm just surprised that it's held him in this race for this long, because it's just random names that I wouldn't necessarily expect, but he held on to Keuchel for this long, and it's finally paying off. Mm-hmm. I'll say that I think because he continued to roster guys like him and Kimbrel, he was suffering roster positions. Robertson was on his team for, I thought, way too long.
Mm-hmm.
Dylan Betances
is still there.
I would think that, just if you're going to DL guys, I wouldn't necessarily put him on relief pitchers. Kimbrel is a different story. You get the one NA spot, and then you get stuck with one on Keuchel or the other. But for me, I couldn't have done that. I couldn't have held on to him for that long because he suffered. He suffered as a result, in my opinion.
Yep.
At the same time, now, finally, he's kind of got all these guys working at the same time, so it's showing. Ari's been rolling for about a month now, and he's got himself basically just out of the race, but one more win like this, and he's right back in.
Absolutely. We'll jump to James's key players this week, and the one thing I want to hit on before I get to the good players, he had 3 guys that combined for 29 strikeouts this week in Gallo, Judge, and Renfroe. We knew that James was going to have weeks like this, especially if he had held on to Stanton as well and he was healthy. This was going to be a team that was just going to strike out at a record clip. And this is that kind of week. He put up 65 strikeouts and only 55 hits for the week. He hit 236. That's not going to get it done. The 286 on base percentage is not going to get it done. But he did have some diamonds in the rough here. He picked up Danny Jansen, who I know, Bobby, you had him rostered for quite a while, despite his incredible struggles early in the season. Well, James might have gotten his best week. He hit 400 with a 400 on base percentage, 3 runs, 2 doubles, a triple, 2 homers, 3 RBIs, and he didn't strike out. Bobby, tell me about Danny Jansen, why you held on to him for so long, and why you finally decided to cut ties.
I don't know. To me, as a manager, some people stream a lot. I kind of draft the guys that I kind of have faith in, and if they're underperforming, maybe I hold on to them too long, almost maybe to a fault. I mean, I still have some guys that probably should still be dropped. Again, I mean, I feel like we have a comfortable, size bench where you can hold on to guys. Maybe not as much as Ari did, because he had a lot of guys who weren't even playing on his team. Mm-hmm. He seems to be a manager not making as many moves, so maybe he's fine with keeping guys who were on the DL or NAs. Yeah, I mean, I was kind of holding on to Jansen, and, he was getting spotty starts, and, catcher, at one point I had 3 catchers on my team where I had LaCroix, Jansen, I picked up Cherno, so, rostering 3 catchers kind of got rough after a while, and I just kind of cut the ties, and then, he seems to be one that, you held on to for 7-8 weeks, and now it's now you're seeing him, he didn't show you what, you drafted him for, so it just happens at times.
Yep. For the rest of James's offense, it's Gene Segura, 346 average, 393 on base, 6 runs, a double, 2 RBIs, 2 steals, a walk, 2 strikeouts, and an error. And finally, Jose Ramirez has finally turned it around, and maybe this might be the trade that propels James into the playoffs and beyond. 273 average, 292 on base, 7 runs, a double, 2 homers, 5 RBIs, a walk, 6 strikeouts, and an error. He only gave up Jonathan Scope and Julio Teheran for him, for a guy who was drafted 4th overall. It's incredible that, he's been this bad for basically a full calendar year. The second half of last year, the first half of this year, if he could finally start to put it together, it might be the catalyst to James really making a run here. Although I find it interesting that and Jose Ramirez's success is really the reason he was able to send away Matt Chapman. For his pitchers, it was Taylor Rogers who got him 2 saves across 2 relief appearances, 3 1/3, nothing earned, and an 0.30 whip. He did win saves, which is huge. And when you pair that with Hansel Robles' 1 save, 4 relief appearances, all clean, 4 strikeouts, and a 1 whip across 5 innings, he's put together a really good bullpen. He's definitely hopeful though that Shane Green, much like Mike Haber was hitting on earlier, he's hoping Will Smith goes to a contender that he can keep a closer job. James is hoping for the same thing with Shane Green. Finally, Sonny Gray, 8 innings, a win, a walk, 12 strikeouts, shutout ball, and an 0.63 whip. We hit on Sonny Gray during the draft review with James, and he's been incredible for him. Finally getting out of New York. Some guys just can't pitch in New York, and it's evident that Sonny Gray was one of those guys. So it's great to see him back to, serviceable to above average pitcher. And in this rotation with Ryu and Paddock and him and soon to be Corey Kluber and Jameson Taillon, that's a starting 5 you can go to war with. Especially, you would think, that can go up against a guy like Ari, who's throwing out, Samardzija and Keuchel and Cashner. It's just this particular week, he doesn't get the job done. I think you can point right at Ross Stripling and David Hernandez and Jake Junis as the 3 guys who really screwed that up for him, because he had a really good pitching week, all other things considered. I did miss out on Ari's key offensive players. I'll hit on those now. Rougned Odor had a huge week, 300 average, 286 on base percentage, 4 runs, a double, 3 homers, 10 RBIs, and 8 strikeouts. Jay Bruce, 389 average and on base percentage, 3 runs, 3 homers, 7 RBIs, and 2 strikeouts. It is absolutely maddening as a Mets fan to see this guy continue to succeed in Philly. Finally, JT Realmuto, 360 average, 429 on base, 6 runs, 4 doubles, 5 RBIs, a steal, 3 walks, and 6 strikeouts. Any final thoughts from any of you guys on this particular matchup?
Yeah, I'll say that go ahead, Bobby. Go ahead.
No, I wanted to get your thoughts on both of your thoughts on Gallo. I mean, he's definitely overperforming this year. I mean, past couple of years he was only a 200 hitter. He's about 70 points above in batting average, and he's got an on base of over 400. Do you think that's sustainable moving forward? That's another case that I was looking at, and James and I have kind of been chit chatting about. Interested in your thoughts.
I think that for me at least, Gallo seems like he's the real deal. And because the Texas Rangers come out with such a stacked offense day in and day out, I look at their lineup every day and I think that they could potentially score 5 runs every night. And he's a big reason why. And you just can't necessarily, eventually you have to pitch to him. And there's going to be certain times where guys are in scoring position and you have to throw him strikes. And if not, then he's going to be the guy that draws a walk, ups your on-base percentage. I mean, this guy really is a dynamic player and helps the team in so many ways because he's so powerful, because he can wreck a ball game if you pitch to him when he's hot. So, to me, if I'm James, he's moved on from Stanton. He still has a pretty stacked offense. If I'm James, I'm holding on to this guy.
I disagree completely. I think Joey Gallo is going to come back down to earth. For the same reasons I looked at Lorenzo Cain's deeper numbers, the same 2 stats I will look at with Joey Gallo. Batting average of balls in play. He's got a 275 average. His BABIP is 398. That is incredibly unsustainable. He's just... A normal BABIP is usually 30 to 40 points higher than your batting average. It's usually trending where you think this guy's going to go. But if you think Joey Gallo is supposed to be hitting somewhere near 400, you're insane. And that's going.
I'm not saying that. You didn't need to expect that, though, Joe.
No, but what I'm saying, no.
To be a serviceable win you.
What I'm saying is that is going to come down, and with that, his batting average is going to fall. Do I see him hitting better than 200 this year? Absolutely. I think he's done more than enough that he will finish better than 200. 206 last year, 209 the year before that. I could see him hitting somewhere in the upper 240s, somewhere near 250, and that's absolutely a career year for him. I think this is a career year for him, but I don't think 275 is sustainable. As well,
no.
the on-base percentage percentage is 100 points higher than anything he's ever done. And it's one of those, he draws a ton of walks, and that's going to help. But I don't think that's sustainable either. His WOBA is 428, which is right in line with his on-base percentage. So I think that can stay upwards of 400. I think it dips underneath by season's end somewhere near 380, 390, which would be still a ton higher than where he is in his career. 312 last year, 333 the year before. So do I think he'll end up like 390 to close to 400? Sure, but I don't think this 417, 425 is going to be sustainable.
Okay, and on Ari's team, I'll say that this deep bench that he continues to ride week in and week out, if he manages appropriately that he doesn't leave stats on his bench and he's winning categories as a result, he'll stay in this race. If he ends up just leaving stats on the bench like he did the week prior and he ends up losing, then that's it,
Yeah, and this week is going to be a real good test for him, especially considering he's facing off, against Josh Haber. So this is a week he needs to get healthy. He needs to get a good solid win against him as well, and maybe bump himself up above Mike Sherman if that's possible. Sherman is facing off against James, so James needs to get right here. We'll jump off this matchup, and we're going to jump over to mine against Frank. I took him down 13-7. I was 1-2-1 in my last 4, kind of hitting a little bit of a skid. Frank, obviously, 1-9-1 in his last 11, the one win coming last week against Bobby. Close matchups. What's that?
I said ho.
The close categories this week, I won by an error. Frank won by 5 points in the on-base percentage category, and a loss and a save. We tied in triples. For me on the bench, it was 6 for 21, a 286 batting average, 2 runs, a homer, 4 RBIs, a walk, and 6 strikeouts. Really, it was just it was really disappointing to see Mitch Garver go off on Wednesday, 2 for 6 with 2 RBIs on the bench, and Jorge Alfaro didn't start. But that was the day I was traveling back from my vacation. It was the last day I wasn't really in front of a computer to look at it, and it was another case of I got up in the morning, I set my lineup, I got on the plane. By the time I landed, lineups were set, and to be honest, I came home, I landed at noon my time, 3 o'clock East Coast, got home by 1 o'clock my time, went to take a nap at 2:30 in the afternoon, and I woke up at 6 o'clock the next morning. I just slept an entire day away, so if that's the only thing that kind of hurt me, I'll take it. With my roster moves, I streamed Glenn Sparkman, that was really ill-advised. I streamed Michael Wacha, that was also really ill-advised. But despite that, I started off with an ERA of 19, and I still win ERA and WHIP this week. Thanks in large part to Frank trying to catch me in innings unsuccessfully.
That to me was his bitter end, because he had you on the ropes, Joe. I mean, you had a terrible ERA to start. His batting average, I think, was better than yours, and he hadn't had as many at bats, or the reverse. Whatever it was, that eventually your batting average was going to come down, and things were going to start to level out. And at the same time, I thought that he could just penny pinch with his innings, and then, to hell with the trying to catch innings and try to keep the ERA low. But I think he did try to catch you. You'll get into the starts that he made, the decisions that he made with his starting pitching.
Yeah, it was really interesting to watch him pick up pitcher after pitcher, and I'm like, if you're going to try to catch me in innings, I'm just going to stream other guys that will have better starts. I picked up Trevor Richards on Saturday night with no intention of starting him, but he was the one guy that I looked at and said, that's a pretty intriguing matchup. I don't want Frank to have him. So I picked him up and then dropped him the next morning, which means he'd go to waivers rather than being a free agent for Frank to pick up, and I ended up picking up Avisail Garcia. For Frank on his bench this week, it was 13 for 27. That's a 481 batting average. 3 runs, which would have tied him the category, a double, a homer, 4 RBIs, a steal, 3 walks, and 6 strikeouts. The things I found interesting, Alex Gordon went 2 for 4 on his bench on Tuesday. Austin Meadows went 0 for 4 in center field, and Soler homered on his bench as well. he had a great offensive week when you look at it. It just wasn't as good as mine because I had a fantastic week. Other than average and on base percentage, a 306 and a 361 should win me most weeks. But I ran into a week where he hit really well. I was just able to get more counting stats. As far as his moves are concerned, now that's where things got really interesting. On Tuesday he traded Willy Adames and Will Smith for Austin Meadows. He ended up picking up Cam Bedrosian, Noe Ramirez, and Sean Anderson all on Wednesday the 3rd. Those guys, Anderson went 4 innings, gave up 4 earned. Cam Bedrosian was awful. He had 3 relief appearances for him and had an 18 ERA with a 2.33 whip. And Noe Ramirez, where is he at? I know he's still on his roster, I think. I don't think Noe Ramirez even saw the lineup, or he didn't get into a game for him. He then dropped Sean Anderson and added Eliezer Hernandez, who went out and threw 4 1/3 with a loss, 6 strikeouts, 6.23, and a 1.38 whip. He dropped Zach Plesac, who went to the minors, and ended up picking up Drew Pomeranz, who went 4 innings with a loss and 4 earned runs, a 2.50 whip, and 2 home runs. He dropped both of those guys at the end of the week and ran out of moves, picking up JT Chargois, who ended up winning him relief appearances by 2. But at the end of the day, I'm not gonna get too upset. I still won I won the week by 6. But at the end of the day, that's really what it boils down to, is that he had the opportunity to not stream these pitchers who just absolutely shit the bed for him. My ERA was north of 9 for half the week, and I figured, okay, if I can just get innings, wins, and strikeouts, that's 3, and hope for the best. And the best came. I ended up winning ERA and whip because I got good starts late in the week. I ended up somehow winning home runs given up, and I only lost walks given up by 3. I'll take that week every time if I can end up, pitching terribly and still winning half to more than half of the stats. We'll jump to key players this week, unless you guys have something to chime in on.
No, go for it.
All right, key players for me this week. Javi Baez just stuck it to Frank for trading him to me. 357 average and on base percentage, 4 runs, 3 doubles, 2 homers, 6 RBIs, 7 strikeouts, and an error. This week for me it was really all about home runs and RBIs because I put together 12 and 35 for the week. Frankie Lindor was fantastic as well. 348 average, 423 on base, 4 runs, a double, 2 homers, 5 RBIs, a steal, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts, and an error. And finally, Yoan Moncada, 368 average, 458 on base percentage, 5 runs, 2 doubles, 2 homers, 4 RBIs, a steal, 4 walks, 5 strikeouts, and 2 errors. It's once again that infield that will carry me as far as I can go, because those 3 guys are just absolutely on fire lately. Moncada's riding a 13-game hitting streak going into the break. He's hitting over 300. He's exactly what I thought he would be this year. It's the breakout season that I saw coming at the end of last year, and I really look forward to seeing what he's capable of the second half. Pitching-wise for me? Go ahead.
It's incredible because just the fact that these guys had such a good week for you is the reason you won runs. It's the reason why you won RBIs. It's the reason why you won home runs. It's awesome to count on just a couple of guys and they're able to just carry your team for a week. And Frank's offense was good this week for the second week in a row. He had a good batting average. He had a good on-base percentage. But like you said, it was the counting stat that really mattered in the end because your pitching wasn't great, his pitching wasn't great. So you just needed to capitalize with your slugging, and you did so.
Yeah, and the thing is, those 3 guys in particular are all 5-category guys, right? They all hit for power. They all drive in runs. They all score runs, and they all run and steal bases. I won the steals category 4-0, and it was in no small part thanks to these three guys, along with Soto and Pham, who got me all four of my steals. You know, I've put together a lineup of guys that I tried to find as many 5-tool guys as I could, and it certainly is weeks like this where I go, okay, this is all right, I can live with this. Pitching wise for me, you know, we talked about how bad my pitching was early in the week, but as the week progressed, my pitching got better and better. You know, I had Charlie Morton go, and he had 7 innings, a win, 12 strikeouts, and the thing was, I benched him on Sunday, the 7th, against the Yankees at home, and he pitched well there too. It could have been even better. He went 7 innings, 12 strikeouts, a 1.29 ERA, and an 0.71 WHIP against Baltimore on the 2nd. But he also threw 5 2/3 with a win and 10 strikeouts against the Yankees on Sunday. And had I started him there, it wouldn't have made much of a difference, right? None of that would have changed anything. But my ERA would have been under 5, and that would have been a little bit more respectable. I did stream Eric Lauer, who was on my team as soon as I can find him. 6 innings, 6 strikeouts, a 1.50 ERA, and an 0.83 WHIP. His start came in LA, and it was a dangerous start, I'm not going to lie. But I thought about this, that Frank had Eric Lauer on his team, and Ben, you hit on it a few weeks back, that when you trade for a guy, you want to play him against the guy you traded him for so that that guy can see what he gave up. This was an opportunity for me to pick up a guy that Frank had on his roster and dropped. And it was a really good start. 6 innings, 6 strikeouts, and a walk. And he got me, you know, he helped get me that ERA down to where it needed to be. Finally, Kenta Maeda, 7 2/3. He did take the loss and gave up 2 homers, but a walk and 6 strikeouts with a 3.52 ERA and an 0.65 WHIP. The 0.65 WHIP is really where it stands out, because that's where, you know, I continue to get that WHIP down to a 1.35, which isn't great, but it did win this week.
Not to mention the one walk only. I mean, you lost that category, but it wasn't because of him.
No, it was definitely because of guys like Dylan Cease, who had not a great start. Jumping into Frank's team real quick, it's Chris Bryant this week for him. 4.29 average, 4.78 on base, 3 runs, 4 doubles, a homer, 3 RBIs, 2 walks, and 6 strikeouts with an error. Jonathan Scope played well, 3.81 average, 4.35 on base, 5 runs, 2 doubles, a homer, 5 RBIs, a walk, and 6 strikeouts. And Nick Castellanos gave him a good week as well, 3.45, 3.67 on base, 2 runs, 3 doubles, a homer, 6 RBIs, a walk, and 6 strikeouts. That's not to mention Christian Vasquez wore me out this week. 3.85 average, 3.93 on base, 7 runs, 3 homers, 7 RBIs, 3 doubles, a walk, and 3 strikeouts. That guy is gold, and Frank, you know, has had him and dropped him and had him and dropped him, and, you know, he's been on a couple other teams. You know, that's I don't foresee him staying on Frank's roster. Let's be brutally honest here. Frank is notorious for dropping guys the second they go, like, you know, over 12 over a weekend. But if he can hang on to this guy, he's definitely worth rostering. He's definitely worth hanging on to, and he definitely wore me out this week. Pitching this week, Heath Hembree gave him the only save of the entire matchup, and that came on Sunday, and that annoyed me really badly, because this was a 13-6 matchup, which looks really great, and 13-7, I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but like 13-7 just doesn't look as nice as 13-6. I know it's only 1 point, but maybe it's only me, but 13-6 just seems a whole lot nicer.
Double something up.
Exactly. It's a double up versus you just barely don't.
Yeah. Cam Bedrosian, though he was absolutely atrocious for him, did give him 3 relief appearances. He led the team in relief appearances, and he won that stat, so I'm going to give it to him. And finally, Julio Teheran, 6 innings, 6 strikeouts, 2 walks, nothing earned, and a 1.17 WHIP. It was his best start of the week, so I'll give him that credit where it is. And that was a start fairly early in the week, if I remember correctly. Yeah, it was on the 5th, which was, Wednesday? Well, it was on Friday, so by then he had already probably ruined his ERA, but, you know, it was a good start for him. Anything else to hit on, guys, or should I move on?
Did you do his key offensive players?
I did. Chris Bryant, Jonathan Scope, Nick Castellanos, and I hit on Christian Vasquez.
All right, so at this point, where do you feel like you stand? Where do you think after this matchup that puts you with 8 matchups to go? Like, what are you trying to do? Like, are you trying to, assemble in some way? Are you standing pat? Like, where are you at this point?
I've said it before. I'll say it again. By July 1st, you should feel pretty confident in your roster and ready to go to war. I did that. I felt really good after the Verlander trade, and I feel like I'm ready to go to war. I'm only 4 out of first place. I'm looking to once again go back to the playoffs. I've put together a squad that I feel like can contend with just about anybody on any given week. My offense is really good. If I get Giancarlo Stanton back early August, I could really do some damage. My bullpen is weak. I recognize that, but I feel like after the deadline, it could be a completely different picture. And, things need to fall right, and you need to get lucky every once in a while. I've been extremely fortunate the last 2 years, and I'm hoping for more of the same. We can jump forward. The next one up will be Witness Protection, Jason Ashby taking on Josh Habers. Well, I'll be damned. And Josh gets a win here despite losing 2 of his last 3, and Jason winning his last 2 coming into this matchup. Close categories this week for Josh. He won by an error, a loss, and a walk. And Jason won by a double, a triple, and .02 in the whip category. They tied in steals, home runs given up by a pitcher, and relief appearances. For Josh, who won the week, he went 6 for 42. That's a 143 batting average. 2 runs, a double, a homer, and 6 RBIs. The only thing I saw that was interesting was Kyle Seager homering on his bench on Saturday with Josh Donaldson going 0 for 3 at third base. Otherwise, it was a pretty clean week for Josh, and I don't know if it's just because he ended up winning against me 2 weeks back, or if he's finally come back into the fold and is playing harder than he has the first, 12 weeks of the season. But, the roster moves are up, the bench stats are down, he's playing, the proper catcher on the right days. Maybe you can hit on that for me, Benny.
Yeah, it just seems like he wanted to spoil a little bit. I don't know where it came from. There was a resurgence at some point. He's won 2 in a row. He's won pretty decisively 2 weeks in a row. And at this point, he knows that he's playing spoiler, but he's going to go down fighting like some of these other guys just because they're at the bottom. They know that the integrity of the league is so critical, and they don't want to just roll over. They want to ruin someone's chance of getting the playoffs. I think that's what we're seeing here.
Yeah, it looks like he was chasing relief appearances late in the week. He ended up tying that category. So, if he ends up spoiling Jason's season with this win, or another one late this season, it'll be really fun to see. Considering he's gotten back-to-back wins against 2 of the guys currently in the playoff picture, he's a dangerous team all of a sudden, and I would be pretty concerned if he's on my schedule the rest of the way.
Yeah, he's been a dangerous offense most of the year.
Mm-hmm.
He's just got those good players like Harper, and even though Harper's having a down year, he's got Freddie Freeman. It's a solid team, man, and he's had a good offense all season. It's been more the management than the actual players itself. I mean, I'm not saying Josh would be in the playoff race, but he'd be a heck of a lot closer. He'd be a higher seed, and he might be actually competing for something going into these last 8 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to jump to Jason's team. He went 12 for 48 on the bench. That's 250 batting average, 6 runs, 2 doubles, a homer, 3 RBIs, 2 steals, 3 walks, 16 strikeouts, and an error. It's pretty solid there. The only thing that stands out, Ryan McMahon on Tuesday went 3 for 4 with an RBI and a steal on the bench. And Willy Adames goes 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts at second base. Considering that they tied in steals, that is pretty huge. He did trade for Adames. He also traded for McMahon as well. So to find both of these guys that he traded for, fighting for the same position, I find it very interesting, especially considering he traded for both these guys with the same manager in Frank. And Willy Adames got traded to his team that day. So I can understand the idea. You just got this guy. You got to get him into the lineup. Was McMahon's game at home is the question, though. It was at home against Houston. And, I've said it before. I'll say it again. If you've got a Colorado player, you play him at home. That's the best hitters ballpark in baseball, and their hitters are pretty damn good there. He did make a few interesting roster moves. He ended up dropping Jordan Yamamoto, which was interesting because that kid has been pitching really well. I just don't know if he's going to stick in the rotation with Zach Gallen and Caleb Smith coming back. He dropped Griffin Canning. He dropped Eric Sogard, who we've talked about before. It was a pretty interesting week for him. He kind of retooled a lot of his lower end pitchers and his bench players. We'll jump to key players this week for Josh, who won the week. It's Josh Donaldson again. 211 average. You don't like to see that, but 400 on base percentage, 5 runs, a double, 3 homers, 6 RBIs, 6 walks, and 5 strikeouts. Ozzie Albies had a good week as well. 429 average, 478 on base, 5 runs, 5 doubles, a homer, 3 RBIs, 2 walks, and 2 strikeouts. And finally, Nico Goodrum gets into the lineup on a regular basis and pays off. 375 average, 474 on base percentage, 6 runs, a double, a homer, 3 RBIs, a steal, 3 walks, and 2 strikeouts. This is a guy I have been screaming at my webcam for months about. This guy needs to be in the lineup. This guy needs to play over guys like Asdrubal Cabrera or any random other guy who's not got a game that day and he's sitting on the bench. He's finally looks like he's going to be playing at least some role on Josh's team, and it's paying off, and it's good to see. Any thought to his offense?
Well, yeah, sure. To me, at least, this is a solid offensive team, and Goodrum, it's a guy that you need to plug in there at this point because he's had a solid year on a team that's been faltering since the beginning. He's going to get pitches to hit. I've always liked Josh's offense, and as far as Jason goes, it's a team that you're concerned because, you want to beat Josh because Josh is a bottom team. You always want to beat bad teams. But I'll say this. I don't know how Bobby feels. I don't know how you feel. But, when you're facing a team that's below you, to me, I don't think it's as important to win that as opposed to a team that you're racing with. So, for me, if I have to make the choice on the loss that I'm going to take, I'd much rather take someone that's lower in the standings.
Bobby, your thoughts on that?
I would agree. I feel like you always want to know where your team is at, and I feel like you value what your team really is based on how you compete against the better teams more so than the worst teams.
Yeah, I look at a situation like what I just had, where I was on vacation and I split 2 weeks of my 2 matchups with my vacation, and I ended up going basically 500, and it's against 2 bottom feeder teams. I feel pretty good that I escaped that with a 500 record, and now when I've got Jimmy Dunlap and you and both of you guys coming up in the next few weeks, I'd rather focus on those matchups than worrying about my vacation and bottom feeder teams. I'm kind of with you on that, Benny. Pitching-wise for Josh, it was Mike Leake, who has put together a fairly decent season, all things considered. 7 2/3, all clean innings, 7 strikeouts, and 0.65 WHIP. The start came against St. Louis, so again, St. Louis is the kind of team you want to stream against right now. They're just not playing very good ball. CC Sabathia gave him a good start as well. 7 innings, 5 strikeouts, 2 walks, and a homer. 3.86 ERA and a 1.14 WHIP. That start came in Tampa. He got a no decision there as well. And finally, James Paxton. 6 innings, 3 strikeouts, a 1.50 WHIP, a 1.50 ERA, and a 1.67 WHIP with a homer and 2 walks. Another start that came in Tampa Bay. He did get the loss there. Josh did not record a win this week, so it's kind of difficult to find a pitcher that really stands out. But when you go 0-2 on your pitching record and you still win, one of those two categories, I think you take that every week. We'll jump to Jason's offense. Whit Merrifield stands out. It's a 367 average, a 406 on base, 3 runs, 3 doubles, 2 RBIs, 2 steals, 2 walks, 8 strikeouts. Andrew Benintendi gave him a good week, 263 average and on base, 2 runs, a double, a triple, 2 RBIs, and a steal with 4 strikeouts. It was the only triple of the matchup. It won him the category, and the steal is really helpful considering that he tied in that category. Finally, Wilson Contreras, arguably the best catcher this season, 300 average, 391 on base, 3 runs, 2 doubles, a homer, 4 RBIs, 3 walks, and 3 strikeouts. Pitching-wise for Jason, Max Scherzer continues to be the best pitcher in baseball. 7 innings, a win, 11 strikeouts, nothing earned, 0.71 whip, and 1 walk. Jose Quintana, who has struggled recently but gave him a good start here. Going to be 7 innings and a win, 6 strikeouts, a 3.86 ERA, and a 1 whip. And finally, Kirby Yates just continues to be the best closer this season, 3 2/3, 3 relief appearances, 3 saves, 4 strikeouts, all clean innings, and 0.27 whip. Final thoughts from this matchup, or shall we move on, gentlemen?
It's just witness protection. Whit Merrifield being the captain, that guy saved him. Because if Jason doesn't win doubles here, that's just another category, and Whit got 3 of them. Mm-hmm. So that's the reason he won that category, and he did not have a good offensive week. So I don't know how Jason. I'd like to say if I'm Jason, I'm not too concerned about this. His offense has had a pretty solid season, but this is just a cold week, and you take law of averages. Those guys, they'll turn it
on. Yeah, I completely agree. All right, let's plow through these final 3 matchups so we can get to best and worst, and we can get to bed because it's after midnight Eastern time. Chris Levy took on Barry Nisman. Jose told his story versus put a halt to losing. Chris takes down the win here, 11-6. Came into this matchup 4-0-1 in his last 5. Barry did have a 2-game winning streak as well, so something had to give. Chris wins by 2 runs, a strikeout, 3 innings pitched, and a save. Barry wins by 2 steals, and they tied in doubles, triples, homers, and relief appearances. So it's insane to see that they both had 13 doubles, a triple, and 8 homers. For Chris on his bench, 9 for 43, that's a 209 batting average, a run, a double, 4 RBIs, a steal, 4 walks, and 10 strikeouts. The only thing I found interesting was that he left a steal on the bench on Wednesday. He went 1 for 10 with a steal, 2 walks, and 5 strikeouts. But his entire team hit like 0.88 that day. It was disgustingly bad. And it definitely contributed to the fact that he lost average and on-base percentage. His roster moves were interesting. He ended up picking up Adam Frazier and then dropped Adam Frazier the same day. He picked up and dropped Gio Urshela. It's just more of the are we indecisive, or are we picking up guys before the game is announced and they're not in the lineup? Not quite sure. Moving over to Barry's team, 8 for 32 on the bench. That's a 250 average. 6 runs, a double, 3 homers, 6 RBIs, a steal, 2 walks, 7 strikeouts, and an error. The only big thing he had was Yuli Gurriel on Tuesday, 3 for 5, 2 runs, a double, 2 homers, 4 RBIs on the bench. Tommy La Stella, 0 for 3 at third base. Given that he tied doubles and homers and lost by 5 categories, that's a huge loss right there. That's a huge miss. He did also waste a move when he picked up and dropped Pablo Sandoval on the same day. He had a very interesting relationship with Dwight Smith Jr. this week. He picked him up and dropped him, and I want to say he picked him up and dropped him again since then. Other than that, not a whole lot. Streamed Tyler Mahle, streamed Daniel Mengden, picked up Jose Urquidy. It looks like he was chasing innings late in the week, did not get there, didn't get strikeouts, lost ERA and whip, lost wins, so it's really tough to see, somebody throw 3 starters on a Sunday, or it actually looks like it was Saturday, and not get to where they want to be. Any thoughts along those lines?
Go ahead, Bob. No, I agree with you. I mean, there's some people getting picked up and started that I don't know if I would start under any scenario like Molly, but I see what he was thinking. If you're chasing innings, I mean, you'll put just about anybody in if you're trying to run down a category.
Yeah. Key players this week for Chris, it was Michael Brantley, who again is he's been ridiculous this year. This week it's 529 with a 579 on base, 8 runs, 3 doubles, a homer, 3 RBIs, 2 walks, and 2 strikeouts. Trevor Story, 263 average, 333 on base, 3 runs, 2 homers, 2 RBIs, 2 walks, and 5 strikeouts. And Eduardo Escobar, 368 average, 381 on base, 3 runs, 2 doubles, a triple, 3 RBIs, a walk, and 4 strikeouts. You know, offensively, he had 301 average, a 336 on base percentage, 3 steals won him the category, and 39 RBIs. But that's about it. He tied in a lot of these. He lost by a strikeout somewhere along the line. Just it seems like it would be a week that you would think that he would do better than he did, and yet he still wins the week by 5. Pitching wise for him,
for me though,
yeah.
It's like you said, he had that one horrible day. Mm-hmm. He still manages to get a 260 average out of that. That's impressive to me. That means he went bananas some of these days.
Yeah,
he used to have one really, really awful day, and still pick it up, still tie doubles, still tie home runs. I mean, I tip my cap to the fact that, to have such an atrocious day and still manage to, hold on, like you said, still manage to grab a win. It's pretty reassuring if you're the manager.
Yeah, I actually inverted those stats. He won strikeouts by 1, he won walks, and he won runs scored. Lost or tied everything else. And yeah, it's definitely from, or at least the vast majority of that is from the 088 day that his team hit. It was gross. It was absolutely gross. Pitching wise for him, it was Steven Strasburg, 7 1/3 innings, a win, 14 strikeouts, 2 walks, nothing earned, an 0.55 WHIP. The start was at home against Miami, so you take that every time out because Miami's got a pretty bad offense. Jordan Yamamoto gave him 6 clean innings, 7 strikeouts, 3 walks, and an 0.83 WHIP. The start was in Atlanta. I'm still really surprised this guy was dropped. Although I understand, you want to grab and chase innings, I suppose, but that's not a guy I would have dropped. He's scheduled to start again on the 17th at home against San Diego, and we know the Marlins Park is a really good pitcher's park, so I would probably want to jump on that start. Unfortunately, it looks like he has. Oh, okay. Never mind. He was dropped by Jason, and looks like Chris picked him up for that start, and he's going to be rostering him going forward. It's late. I'm having a moment.
Yeah, you know what, though? It is risky, though. It is still... The Padres are not the same team they've been in previous years, having Hosmer, now having Machado. It's a pretty solid offense. This Framil Reyes guy is good. Fernando Tatis. I mean, everybody in that lineup could beat you. So it's a risk to take. It's certainly not a stream I would go for, especially not early in the week.
It's a good point. I just think that that Marlins Park is indicative of making pitchers better than they are. I mean, this kid has got a 1.24 ERA across 5 starts already, and granted that's going to go up. Perhaps it's this start, but he's been really, really good, and I don't think it was a good idea for Jason to be dropping him specifically. I would have ridden that until the wheels fell off. Finally, Alex Colomé is the final one for Chris. 2 1/3, 2 saves, 3 relief appearances. He did win the saves category, and Colomé got him the 2 saves to do so. For Barry, Yuli Gurriel gave him a great week even with the missed day there. 375 average, 444 on base, 6 runs, 4 homers, 9 RBIs, 2 walks and a strikeout. Considering he missed out on 2 more homers, this would have been a ridiculous week for Yuli Gurriel. As well, Xander Bogaerts, 227 average you don't like to see. 261 on base percentage is kind of ugly too. But 4 runs, 2 doubles, a homer, 8 RBIs, a walk, and 7 strikeouts. And finally, Starling Marte, 310 average, 344 on base, 4 runs, 2 doubles, the triple, 6 RBIs, a steal, 2 walks, and 4 strikeouts. Offensively, Barry's got an okay squad. I don't necessarily think that Paul Goldschmidt is what he wanted him to be this season, and I think that's really where it's at when it comes to, you know, when it comes to his struggles offensively. It really just boils down to Goldschmidt just not being the first rounder that he really wanted.
Good point. If that guy is what he's supposed to be, this is a great offense, and Barry's season is a whole lot different.
Pitching wise for Barry, go ahead, Bob. Go ahead, Bobby.
Bust of the year.
Yeah.
Is that bust of the year a guy being drafted in the first 2 rounds? Like, that's just non-existent on your team?
I mean, he's still homering at a decent rate, right? He's on pace for upper 20s, low 30s in homers, but you expect Goldschmidt to hit like 290 to 300, and you expect him to have like a handful of steals for you, and you certainly expect him to have
stolen base guy.
Yeah, and you certainly expect him to have like close to 100 RBIs by the time the season's over. You know, it's just not there this year. It's, you know, he's only got 9 doubles this year. He's hit 30. He's hit 30 or more every single season of his career. He's got 9.
No triples, no steals.
Yeah, it's just I don't know if he's maybe battling a really, really low key injury. I don't know if it's, you know, a case of him aging, because I don't think he's that old.
No, but it's also a different environment. You know, he's playing on a new team. He's been in Arizona his entire career and flourished there. He's brought up, I remember vividly, the 2011 playoffs against the Milwaukee Brewers, and you're like, what the hell is Paul Goldschmidt? Who is this guy? And he was just raking for Arizona. They ended up losing that series to Milwaukee in 5. But even still, this guy made a name for himself, and then he just stayed on the scene. But he was just always synonymous with being an Arizona Diamondback. It's impossible that a new environment, playing with Matt Carpenter, Yadier Molina, these guys that are just great team players, like always known to be great in the clubhouse. I don't think it's a chemistry thing, but just, you know, sometimes like the lineapology of it, you know, just you're not seeing the pitches that you want to see at the right time.
Yeah, and you look at a guy like Marcell Ozuna, who came to St. Louis, what was it, last year for the first season, and he struggled pretty mightily. So maybe it's something to be said for the first year in St. Louis, you have a hard time, because Ozuna's having a decent season this year. So perhaps it's a case of like, you need a year to adjust to what St. Louis brings to the table, and then you go forward doing fine. You know, but this, I mean, I think somebody next year is going to get an absolutely enormous discount on Goldschmidt. It wouldn't surprise me if he falls out of the first 2 rounds with this season he's put together. Pitching-wise for Barry, it's going to be Anibal Sanchez. I kind of am starting to regret dropping him when I did, because he's put together a pretty good month so far. 6 innings, a win, a homer, 3 walks, 2 strikeouts, a 1.50 ERA, and a 1.33 WHIP. Start came against Miami. You know, he's had it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 of his last 8 starts are all quality starts. And he gets Baltimore next. He's been pretty good, and I kind of regret dropping him because I owned him last before Barry. Ryan Presley gave him 3 relief appearances, 3 innings, 6 strikeouts, a win, all clean innings, a 1.33 WHIP with 2 walks. Finally, Brandon Woodruff, who's been the Brewers' ace and really given Barry somebody that he can rely on. 6 innings. He did take the loss. It was a 1-0 loss in Cincinnati. 6 strikeouts, a 1.50 ERA, and a 1.17 WHIP. Closing thoughts on this matchup before we move on?
Yeah, I just want to know what you both think this guy's team when talking about Chris Levy at this point. I mean, he's been on such a run lately. If it's not for me, he's the hottest team in our league. He suffered an 18-0 loss to Mike Haber in week 2. He's just cruising. Now it's somebody that, he's jockeying for position against Bobby, against Jason Ashby, against some of these other managers. So where do we think his team stands? Does he need help going forward? Do you think he should stand pat? Where are we on Chris Levy with 8 matchups to go? He's definitely in the hunt. He's definitely very much, in this race. So what do we think about this manager as we go forward?
What do you think, Bob? You took a 16-5 loss to him in week 9. Tell me about what you think about this guy.
I mean, yeah, he's a streaky team, but it's somebody you don't want to see. I mean, somebody who goes down 18-0, you're like, yeah, I'll play them any week. I mean, he didn't really get dominated. I mean, he lost a lot of those categories super, super close. And now he just seems like he's really taking a good look at his lineup. He's not making many mistakes. He's making good maneuvers. He's getting the right guys in. So, I mean, he's somebody I'm competing against, but, I haven't looked too much into the details of the schedule what's ahead. I think I had both of you in my final few games, which is not something I'm looking forward to, but it really depends on the matchups and really, those weeks where everybody's like, I went 500, I got the win, I went 11-10. These are the weeks now where you really need to not only stay 500, you need to avoid the bad losses and really try and pick up every win that you can week to week.
Yeah, Chris's closing schedule is pretty favorable. He's got Andy this week. He gets James Santangelo next week. He runs into Mike Haber and James McCloskey in 17 and 18, and then it's 2 favorable matchups with Josh Haber and Frank Bucco. That's probably going to be the 2 matchups that those 2 owners, Josh and Frank, need to focus in on if they really want to play spoiler. That's particularly a spot where a loss to those guys could really ruin Chris's run here. He does finish up with Jimmy Dunlap and Nick Homan to finish his season. So, again, the last month is going to be interesting. He's got 3 teams below him and 1 guy toward the top of the standings. He could get spoiled. He's definitely a target that could get spoiled by these bottom teams. I don't foresee it. Granted, I can't predict it's going to happen, but it's going to be interesting to see how well he does in the last 6 or 7 weeks after he gets through this week.
Absolutely. In those last 3 or 4... Go ahead, Bobby.
Yeah, he's got Robbie Cano on his bench, too. If Robbie Cano does anything that's even remotely close to what the Mets thought they were getting out of him and what they're paying him for the next couple of years, I mean, if Cano gets hot and starts, raking some doubles and actually hitting more than 1 or 2 home runs he's hit at Citi Field, I mean, again, he's got some bats. I mean, Brantley's been pretty good all year. I had Bradley. I picked him up, and I streamed him, and then I let him go, and then I kind of wish I kept him. And he's definitely got, a lot of guys who historically have some hot streaks in them. Trevor Story, another one.
Yeah, you were going to say something, Benny?
I was going to say, in the last 4 weeks, we can assume that some of our teams are going to have very different looks to them. There's going to have to be pitchers that have been dropped, position players that were let go of, and I have no doubt that the team that we're looking at Bobby's team, we're looking at Chris Levy's team, because of the nature of needing to get in, running out of time and needing every single stat on a Sunday. Similar to the reason I dropped Jock Peterson, I needed a guy that was going to play that day. That wasn't easy to let go of him, but I wanted the stats so badly that I was ready to pick up a guy on Sunday that I knew was starting that day, and I had to let go of Jock Peterson. For these kinds of reasons, especially when you come down to the last month, you have to drop guys that you had the whole season because there's a desperation factor that you can't just hold on to a guy and hope for tomorrow. You need to win today. So no doubt in my mind that a lot of these teams will have very different looks, and that's why it's so unpredictable right now to know who's going to be an easy spoiler to deal with, who's going to be, an easy matchup. We just don't know what the teams are going to look like.
Sure. Let's jump over to the 10-14 matchup this week and the final one of the week. It's James Santangelo, Snell My Shorts versus Andy Solar Greco, all brawn, no brain. Both these guys, disappointing seasons to say the least. Andy does take down the win 12-6 after going 1-4 in his last 5. James had been 1-4-1 in his last 6. So both of these guys, as you alluded to, they've been struggling, and it's going to be rough sailing for the rest of the season, perhaps, for them. Close categories this week. Andy wins by 2 runs, a win, and 2 saves. James wins by a double, less than 1 tick in on-base percentage, and a loss. They tied in triples, homers, and errors. For Andy on the bench, 16 for 43. That's a .372 batting average. 9 runs, 5 doubles, a triple, a homer, 5 RBIs, 2 steals, 6 walks, 9 strikeouts, and an error. Considering that he tied in triples and homers, the home run on the bench from Jorge Polanco on Wednesday is pretty disappointing, especially considering he was playing Chris Taylor at shortstop. I'm not quite sure why he would want to play him there. Polanco is a guy he traded for. It's a guy who's been hot. I know firsthand. Pretty disappointing to see. Joey Wendell the day before had 2 steals on his bench, and Nelson Cruz went 0 for 4 at the utility spot. Peralta went 3 for 5 on his bench, and Dickerson was 0 for 4 in left field. And finally, on Friday, man, Edwin Diaz absolutely shit the bed. Both these guys had ERAs north of 5, but Andy somehow survives another Edwin Diaz explosion and ends up winning ERA and WHIP. A couple of ad drops for the week. He dropped Adbert Alzolay. The guy exploded and had a bad start, and I don't blame him for dropping him. To James's team, 6 for 29 on the bench. That's .207 average. 2 runs, 2 doubles, a steal, 2 walks, and 6 strikeouts. I didn't quite catch where the steal came from, but it didn't matter because he lost by 2. What I found really interesting, though, was that Chance Sisco actually changed teams in the middle of this matchup. James dropped him on the first, and Andy picked him up on the third, and he hit .375 with a homer and an RBI and a run scored for Andy. And that's pretty huge. That's pretty huge considering they tied homers and Andy won by 2 runs scored. Other than that, an Adrian Sampson start for James late in the week was really piss poor. Otherwise, it was a rather kind of just their matchup. Andy gets a good double-up win, but nothing really stands out. It was kind of, average at best. Key players this week, Rafi Devers was anything but average this week for Andy. .346 average, .433 on base percentage, 7 runs, 4 homers, 12 RBIs, 4 walks, and 4 strikeouts. Ramon Laureano was really good, .368 average, .440 on base, 7 runs, a double, 3 homers, 7 RBIs, a steal, 3 walks, 4 strikeouts. Finally, Matt Olson, .269 average, .296 on base, 4 runs, a double, 3 homers, 6 RBIs, a walk, and 6 strikeouts. Pitching-wise, it's going to be Patrick Corbin, 14 innings, 18 strikeouts, no decisions, no walks, an .064 ERA, and an .079 WHIP. The fact that the guy went 7 innings in each of his games against Miami and Kansas City, gets 18 strikeouts across those innings, and does not render a decision is amazing. Trevor Bauer gave him 13 innings, 2 wins, 15 strikeouts, a .415 ERA, and a .146 WHIP. 2 home runs given up and 4 walks. It's just more of the same from Trevor Bauer, kind of the reason I moved on from him. The start in Kansas City was bad. It was a .750 ERA and 2 home runs given up despite the win. The start in Cincinnati was pretty good, though. 7 innings, a win, 9 strikeouts. Finally, Domingo Germán has been a really solid pickup for him. He added him really early on in the season. He went 6 innings, a win, 6 strikeouts, 1 homer, a .150 ERA, an .083 WHIP. The start came against, of course, our New York Mets. Thoughts on Andy's team, gentlemen?
Yeah, I'll just say that it's been a disappointing season for him because Andy has been to the playoffs 2 years in a row since he joined in 2017. I know we talked about how Mike Sherman didn't make the inning minimum against them last year, and that's the reason Bobby didn't make the playoffs. But even still, he's a very savvy manager, and it's been a disappointing year for him. But it was nice for him to at least pick up this win against James, who's having an equally awful year, basically.
Yeah.
James has had horrible pitching, basically, throughout this entire stretch. He's had an excellent offense with his Milwaukee Brewers, like Yelich and Moustakas and Grandal. He's really put together a great offensive team, but the pitching is just so bad, and it just goes to show that pitching wins the bigs. And if you don't have it, and you're going to surrender those stats every week, there's no way you're going to the playoffs. As far as Andy goes, it's been a little bit of everything. He's just sometimes it's been running into a hot team when he's been hot, but the other team was hotter, and it's just unfortunate. And then just disappointing weeks as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's really disappointing to see James, a guy who drafted the NL MVP and the AL Cy Young winner in the top 2 rounds, be this far down in the standings because that Cy Young winner has not been the ace he needed, and the rest of his pitching just really hasn't done well. But his key players this week, Yasmani Grandal, you hit on it. He had a 182 average, a 333 on base percentage, 4 runs, 3 doubles, a homer, 2 RBIs, 5 walks, and 6 strikeouts. I'm not quite sure why I hit on him, but I guess I did.
He was bad.
Yeah,
he was bad.
He was bad. Well, most of his offense was bad. I mean, he only hit 231 for the week, so Kyle Schwarber did give him a good week. Why am I hitting on these guys who are terrible? It's a 136 average and a 321 on base percentage. What am I doing here? Yelich was huge. Yelich was the third guy I had. 353, 542 on base, 2 runs, a double, 2 homers, 4 RBIs, the steal, 5 walks, and 5 strikeouts. I feel like I should hit on Marcus Semien instead. 259 average, 310 on base, 3 homers, 6 RBIs, 4 runs, a double, 2 walks, and a strikeout. Kyle Schwarber had 10 strikeouts and 6 walks. He had a decent on-base percentage, and maybe that's why, because he won on-base percentage by less than a point. It's actually 4/10,000ths of a point. Pitching-wise for him, again, it's another bad week, so it's hard to find guys that did do well. Relief appearances is something he won, so Adam Ottavino is a good guy to look at. 4 relief appearances, 3 strikeouts, just bad otherwise. Andrew Miller is apparently a guy I thought did well. 3 relief appearances, 5 strikeouts, all clean across 2 innings. And Robbie Ray gave him a good start. 6 innings, a win, 8 strikeouts, a 1.50 ERA, and a 1.17 WHIP. Final thoughts, Bobby. Get in on this matchup. What do you think these two guys are these two guys going to play spoilers, or do you think somebody can fight their way back up to at least playoff contention?
I mean, part of me wants to, try and throw some trade offers their way, even though they might not be interested because they're out of it. Being so close to making the playoffs last year, maybe some people not setting their lineups at the end. I hope it's still competitive till the end. Even if I'm last 2 weeks I'm in 9th place and there's no mathematical way I get in. I always want to play spoilers, so I'm hoping. Even though they made the playoffs 2 years ago or 2 years in a row and maybe not this year, I'm hoping they keep it just as competitive toward the end and try and play spoiler. Whether it's for me or for another team, that's what I'm hoping.
I have no doubt they will, too.
Yeah.
From my experience, at least, it seems that, and that's not, I'm trying not to generalize because there are some guys that have in the past, when they know that they're out of it, they don't try as hard. But for the most part, the integrity in this league is very strong, and I think everyone enjoys playing every single fantasy week. They know that they're not going anywhere this year. They still play every week like it's their last because, after the season's over, we don't have fantasy baseball for 4 months, 5 months, whatever it is. Yep. So, to me, if it was me at the bottom, I want to play, I want to compete just because I would like to compete. And I want to just try to spoil. I want to do whatever I can to keep the league as integral as possible with everyone in the playoffs because they're supposed to be in the playoffs.
Well, if we talk about these guys being spoilers, it starts this week, Benny. You've got James Santangelo. And then James has a really interesting schedule if he's going to play spoiler. It's you, it's Chris Levy, it's Bobby, it's Mike Haber, it's me, it's James, and it's Jason, 7 of his last 8 weeks. So if he wants to play spoiler, this is the opportunity to do it. He could ruin somebody's season somewhere in here. As for Andy, he's got Chris Levy this week, Mike Haber next week, James McCloskey, two bottom teams, then Jimmy Dunlap, another bottom team, and you get him the final week of the season. So if he wants to play spoiler and you sort of slip down toward 4th or 5th, that could be a really dangerous matchup for you.
100%. Or even if I'm in 3rd and I'm trying to get that bye in the semifinals.
Yep.
Because you and I know, like, getting that 1st or 2nd place spot is so critical. You don't want to play a first round matchup. When you know you've been in the playoffs basically the entire season, for you to just drop into the 3 spot and lose to 6, it's so brutal. You're happy with your season when you get to the playoffs, but when it ends that way, it's an ugly. And it happened to you in 2016, Uncle Barry.
Yep.
So it's happened to both of us, man, where it's just like, you'd just rather be in a bye and not have to play the first round matchup if you can avoid it.
Absolutely. Let's get to best and worst of the week, gentlemen. Bobby, I know I didn't give you any homework, but do you have any idea who the best start of the week was, or if you have one on your own team that you had?
The best start of the week?
Yeah. Across all of baseball.
From week 14?
Yes. I'll give you a few minutes to think on that. Benny, give me your best start of the week.
All right. Both of mine was from the same team, and I was torn between Kershaw and this other guy. And Kershaw went 7 innings, just a 1 walk, 9 strikeouts, a 1.29 ERA, and a .86 WHIP. This other guy on Mike Sherman's team was just a little bit better. 1 less inning, only 6 innings, but he got the win. 9 strikeouts, he did not give up a walk, a 0 ERA, and a .67 WHIP. So I'm giving it to Clevenger.
Nice. I'm going to give it to James McCloskey's start of Sonny Gray on Tuesday against Milwaukee. 8 innings, a win, a walk, 12 strikeouts, an 0.63 WHIP, no earned runs. But there were quite a few this week. Nobody had that overwhelming complete game shutout that really stands out. But it was a week of some really good starts and some really bad starts too, though. Bobby, did you find one?
I was thinking maybe Smarja, who had 2 starts, 15 innings, got 2 wins.
It's a fantastic one. Yeah, he definitely helped Ari get that win.
Catcher's had like 4 or 5 wins in his last 4 or 5 starts. So talking about some washed-up guys on some teams that aren't playing good baseball, but people still finding a way to get double wins out of non-aces or playing huge. A lot of teams this week also didn't have that many wins in the pitching column. A lot of teams won with 4 wins, 3 wins.
Yep.
We had a team that had no wins, so to get 2 wins out of guys like that's pretty incredible.
Yep, absolutely. Let's talk about best offensive weekly performance. Benny, we'll start with you again.
What are we doing? Worst performance?
No, best offensive performance.
Best offense performance. All right, bear with me, Joe.
Okay.
I got it.
You got it?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to go with, I was between Michael Brantley and this guy, but this guy was much better. Rafael Devers for Andy, we just touched up on him. 9 for 26, 7 runs, 4 bombs, 12 runs batted in, 4 walks, 4 Ks, the 346 average, and a 433 on base percentage. 12 RBIs is just awesome. I mean, some guys only have about 24 to 30 RBIs in a week. So this guy had 12. It's almost half. So unbelievable week for this guy on the Red Sox.
Yep. Bobby, I think you might be able to find 1 or 2.
I mean, even though I lost for the week, I mean, I got to shout out my boys a little bit. I mean, I feel like my guys had some big weeks. I mean, Bell hitting 5 dingers and 14 RBIs. I mean, I feel like in those categories you can't say Trout, but he did hit 6 dingers this week. So between those 2 guys, 11 home runs and 24 RBIs in 2 guys. I got to shout them out.
Yeah, you would have won homers and RBIs just from those two guys this week. Those were the two that I had for best offensive performances. 16 runs as well. It's basically half of what Jimmy put up. It was a fantastic week for you, and this is probably what you hope going forward, that these two guys are able to carry your offense. Worst starts this week? You got any, Benny?
Yeah, I do. I just had it up, and then I had to move away from it, though. Okay, so my worst performance from the week was actually Jake Odorizzi on Frank's team.
Mm-hmm.
He had only 3 innings pitched for the loss, 2 home runs given up, 3 walks given up, 2 strikeouts, a 15 ERA, and a 2.33 loss, 2.33 WHIP. For me, I target this one because he was just traded for Frank. This is an opportunity now for Frank to really do some spoiling. He had you on the ropes when your ERA was so god-awful, when your WHIP was so god-awful, and Frank hadn't thrown so many innings. This guy certainly could have helped at least, and this guy just laid an absolute egg for Frank's team, so I had to target that guy.
Yeah. I have 4 really bad starts this week. I'm gonna go ahead and highlight my own. I streamed Glenn Sparkman on Monday. It was a guy that Frank had streamed earlier in the season, and again, it was one of those. Well, he didn't work out for Frank. If I could use him against Frank, I'll feel pretty good about that. It's why I streamed Eric Lauer late in the week. But Sparkman went 3 innings. The start was in Toronto. 3 innings, got the loss, gave up 3 bombs, a walk, a strikeout, 8 earned. That's a 24 ERA and a 3.33 WHIP. It was absolutely atrocious. Bobby, did you see anybody's terrible starts this week?
Nobody. I mean, we're going through the numbers. No one really jumped out at me as being like a horrific start.
Okay.
There's a lot of relievers. There's a lot of guys who got streamed, but I mean, to me, like, they're people who should get like blown up. So it's not like nobody none of the aces or nobody I think of like that's on 90% of rosters or somebody who didn't get picked off waivers really got blown up.
Yeah. Okay. Worst weekly performance of a top 2-round player. Benny, you got one?
Oh, a top 2-rounder?
Yeah. I've got 2.
No, off the top of my head of a top 2-rounder. I'll give you the one guy that I thought of just like a bad player for the week, and I went to my own guy. And that was Trey Mancini.
Okay.
His numbers is that he was 2 for 18 with 2 runs, 4 walks, 2 strikeouts. That's a 111 average and a 273 on base percentage. I was just asking for a couple of RBIs from this guy throughout the entire week. He didn't have 0. What it doesn't show on the stat line is how many guys he left on base.
Mm-hmm.
The answer is 4 million. And it was very frustrating to have to watch him do that.
Gotcha. That might be a record. 4 million left on base in 1 week. I actually was thinking that you were going to go to Chris Sale this week, who did not have as good a start as you certainly would have expected. 3 homers, only 5 strikeouts, took the loss with a 7.94 ERA and a 1.94 WHIP, considering you lost ERA and WHIP. But my pick for worst player this week, and we've touched on him before, and I told you that he was a pretty overrated guy, and I was really thinking that, somebody who invested a top 2-round pick in this guy probably overpaid, considering he just got a $300 million contract. It's Manny Machado, man. Manny Machado hit .095 with a 130 on-base percentage for the week, with 2 RBIs, a walk, and 6 strikeouts. It's just gross. And, Sherman... Mike Sherman he obviously lost the week, and Manny Machado is probably the reason why, considering, he was pretty close in a couple of categories. All right, Benny, it is time for you to announce your manager of the week.
All right, this wasn't an easy decision. There was definitely a couple of runner-ups that you could consider. Bobby's opponent was one of them. I thought Jimmy had a really impressive comeback. Some of the work he did late. I'm giving it to our other guest, Mike Haber. He won batting average 262 to 259. If that swings the other way, Mike only wins 10-9 instead of 11-8. One wrong move by Mike. Now, Mike Sherman has a very small bench, and he rides that all the time, so it wasn't as easy to make a mistake. For Mike Haber, I felt one wrong move. Yeah, we talked about the Chavis thing, but besides him being left out, Mike had a pretty solid week as far as benching his guys. Like he spoke about how Mike Sherman just made all these decisions on Sunday and had a really hot Sunday with his pitching. Mike just let him play out, and he had this kind of a voyeuristic, watch everything that happens and let it fly, and he's just going to play his own strategy, and it worked out for him. So I have to go with Mike Haber.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and give it to Ari Nisman, who absolutely destroyed the top team this week. Dropped James all the way down to third. Quads him up 16-4. He pitched to a 2.63 ERA. Ended up winning relief appearances late. Flipped homers on Sunday. Flipped quite a few categories on Sunday to get this big win and to make things just so much more interesting now coming into the final 8 weeks. If James goes ahead and dominates Ari, if this is the other way around, we're looking at a team starting to separate and go toward the top of the standings, and having him take this loss and drop back down to the pack with us, now there's 5 teams within 8 games of first place. It's going to make this race incredibly competitive, and big ups on Ari to keep his season alive as well. He needed a big win like this. He's gonna need another one this week against Josh Haber to keep his season alive, but this is the first step in the right direction, and it certainly is a welcomed big win against the top team that had been pretty dominant, holding that top spot for 2 months. That will do it for this week. Bobby, I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much for joining us. Any parting words for the rest of the league?
I'll give you my answers to the last 2 questions.
Sure.
I was thinking about it. Aaron Judge for first 2-round disappointment. He batted under 200. I think he had 11 strikeouts this week. Mm-hmm. And then start of the week, manager-wise, I got to give it to Jimmy. I mean, I hit 17 bombs, and I thought I threw everything in the kitchen sink at him. I put up 8 wins and 2 losses, and I lost most pitching categories. And I just felt like everything I did, he just saw what I did and, made the adjustment. So, I mean, he was on his team all week, and I think these final weeks are going to be pretty interesting. I mean, there's a lot of teams who are in it. I think there's a lot of people really fighting at it, and I'm curious to see if there's any more trades that go down before we hit this deadline.
I'll be interested to see if this trade between there's been trade talks all throughout this show. I'll say that much, and I'll be interested to see if any text messages have come through while we were recording. Guys, thank you so much, Benny. Thank you very much for being here every week with me. Until next week, fellas.
You're welcome, Joe. I had a great time, man. Thanks again for having me.
Always.
Yeah, I hope I'm in the pennant race too, because I would love to do this again as we approach the playoffs. So.
Oh, the playoffs will be huge. I'd really like to have at least one matchup, or perhaps as we approach the finals, have 1 or 2 of the guys facing each other come onto this show. But that will obviously be something we'll have to shake out as things progress. Guys, until next week. Thank you guys so much. Also, big shout out to Mike Haber. Thank you for joining us, my friend. We'll have to do this again soon. Until then, it's been real, it's been fun, and it is always real fun in the bigs. We'll catch you soon.